Everyone believed we were the perfect couple, but illusions can crumble in an instant. Then, I discovered a single text message from a stranger that twisted my life into a nightmare of suspicion. Dark secrets slithered into our home, cloaked beneath flashy real estate deals and empty smiles. Lies multiplied, devouring every genuine moment I'd ever cherished. On a cold night, I followed her to that deserted place, hearing his name whispered like a sinful confession. My trust shattered. My heart, savage with betrayal, flared with vengeance. And in that raging storm of fury, I vowed she would pay for every deceit. Chapter 1. Carson Green leaned back in his swivel chair, a lukewarm mug of coffee perched on his cluttered desk. He blinked at the official envelope in his hands, the return address reading, Coldwater County Tax Office. His breath caught. He hadn't expected anything from there, certainly not a big, ugly notice. "Danielle?" he called, voice echoing through the hallway of their suburban home. "You seen this letter from the county?" He heard faint footsteps, then his wife Danielle appeared in the doorway. Her neat blonde hair was twisted into a low bun, and she wore a sleek pencil skirt. It was 8 in the morning on a Tuesday prime time for her real estate client calls. She usually had a bright, go-getter air about her, but she looked a little distracted today, phone practically glued to her palm. "What letter?" she asked in a clipped tone, arching one brow. "Is this about the farmland your grandma left you?" Carson sighed, nodding. "It's not farmland, exactly just that chunk of acreage up in Coldwater County. The notice says they've jacked up the property taxes because there's an unpermitted structure built on it." He flipped the form so she could see the bold print. The number in the total due box was alarmingly high. If there really was some half-built building out there, it was news to him. Danielle gave a dismissive shrug. "Probably a bureaucratic mix-up. Listen, babe, I gotta jump on a call soon. Maybe you can just call them up and ask for corrections." Carson grunted. "Might not be so simple. It specifically mentions additional improvements discovered by an inspector like a partial house. That can't be a mistake. Someone's building out there." He studied his wife's face for a reaction. She offered a mild frown and set her phone on the table screen down. "You're not planning to keep that land, are you? I mean, it's so remote. We never even go out there. Why not just sell it cheap and skip the headache?" His eyes flicked to the framed photograph of his late grandmother that sat on his desk. She was the reason he'd inherited that property in the first place. She'd insisted he keep a piece of the family's old roots, a sentimental anchor. "I can't do that, Danny. It matters to me. I need to figure out what's going on." "Fine. Suit yourself." She exhaled, picking up her phone again. "But if you ask me, it's not worth the trouble. You're busy with your cybersecurity clients, right?" Carson forced a thin smile. He couldn't shake the weird twinge in his gut that told him something was off. He'd felt tension around Danielle for a few weeks now, long nights, meeting clients, extra phone calls, the name Rudy on her phone a few times. Yet he'd told himself it was just her hustle to land big listings. Now, seeing her reaction, the disinterest, the breezy suggestion that he let it go or sell it cheap, he felt his suspicions spike. "I'll drive up there in a few days," he said quietly. "See it in person, talk to the county if needed." She shrugged again. "Sure, do what you want. Let me know if you need me for anything, but I'll have showings all weekend, some big money buyers from out of town." Her eyes flicked away. "Guess we're both busy." With that, Danielle walked off, phone pressed to her ear. Carson stared at the letter, tension gnawing. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe it was the start of a revelation he wasn't prepared for. Later that afternoon, Carson refilled his coffee and wandered into the living room. Danielle was perched on the couch in a sleek blouse, flipping through real estate listings on her laptop. The phone beside her chimed, showing a text from Rudy B. She instantly angled the screen away. A jab of discomfort ran through Carson's chest. He sank onto an adjacent chair. "So how's business? Anyone biting on that big colonial downtown?" Her lips curved into a careful smile. "Might have a buyer. Some hush-hush investor. Could be huge for us." She closed her laptop. "Anyway, you want dinner? I was thinking takeout. I have more calls soon." He stared a moment, then nodded. "Sure, I'll grab takeout. You working all night?" Her phone chimed again, and she picked it up swiftly, glancing at the screen with parted lips. Yeah, might be. This new client is real intense, needs constant updates. Carson forced a laugh. Right, client. You sure it's not that Rudy you mentioned the other day? I keep seeing his name pop up. He tried to sound light, but the edge in his tone was unmistakable. Danielle's gaze sharpened. Rudy is a colleague. He invests in properties, okay? Relax. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. I'm heading into the office. If you want Chinese or something, just leave me the shrimp lo mein. And then she was gone, heels clacking down the hallway. Carson clenched his jaw. Something was definitely wrong. Close to midnight, Carson sat at his home office desk, the overhead lamp casting a faint glow. He pulled up the Coldwater County website, plugging in the parcel ID of his inherited acreage. Sure enough, the system showed an active new construction note flagged 6 months ago. That timeline was bizarre. He hadn't visited the property for a year or so, but it was supposed to be untouched. He glanced at Danielle's realty website, scanning for any mention of rural listings in Coldwater County. Nothing. Then he found her professional e-card. Danielle Green, top agent, specialized in commercial deals. Commercial? He tried to quell the dread building in his stomach. Grabbing his phone, he scrolled through old messages. One from his longtime friend April caught his eye. Hey, Cars, heard from your grandma's caretaker. That land might be worth checking on soon. Rumors swirl about developments. Take care. At the time, he'd brushed it off. Now it felt ominous. He tapped April's contact, deciding to call first thing in the morning. With a groan, he closed his laptop. If someone was illegally building, that was bad enough. But the way Danielle had been acting, he shook his head. No, he wouldn't jump to conclusions about cheating, though that knot in his gut wouldn't let him sleep easy. The next day, Carson rose early, coffee in hand. Danielle was already gone, left a note. Showing a property at 7 a.m., be back late. The note included a quick scribbled heart. He sighed, setting it aside. She was an early riser sometimes, but 7 a.m. was unusual. Then again, everything about her schedule felt unusual lately. He dialed April. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. Well, hello, stranger. You finally calling me back? Hey, April. Sorry about the delay. You know that land up in Coldwater? The county's hammered me with a new tax assessment for some building. Did you say you heard rumors about that place months ago? April paused. I did. I heard from the caretaker who used to keep an eye on your grandma's farmland. He said something about trucks going in and out or new gravel. So it's not just talk, huh? Apparently not. I'm heading up tomorrow or the next day to see for myself. Want to bet it's a developer who messed up the addresses? April gave a low hum. Maybe, but something feels off. If you want, I can do some quick checks on names or companies linked to building permits. Just send me the property ID. Carson exhaled relief. Thanks. That would be great. I appreciate it. And hey, can I ask you something else? It might be unrelated. Do you know a Rudy Beltran? Silence. Then April spoke carefully. I know the name. Beltran invests in random real estate deals, rumored to be shady. Why? Carson's chest tightened. Danielle's been texting with him a bunch. She claims it's professional, but... I see. April cut in gently. Look, Carson, I'll do a little digging. I can't promise much, but if he's that same Rudy Beltran, he's got a rep in certain circles. You watch your back, okay? He thanked her and hung up, heart pounding. Shady real estate deals, new unpermitted building on his land, and Danielle's suspicious behavior. The puzzle pieces were aligning in a way he didn't like. Carson decided to leave that very afternoon. He stuffed a duffel bag with some clothes, a small portable grill, and a sleeping bag, in case he had to spend the night out there. His gut told him he might. He left Danielle a voice message, noticing she didn't pick up. Hey, heading up to see the property. Back in a couple days. Text me if you need me. Love you. The love you felt forced on his tongue, like an old habit. Guilt and anger churned together. He didn't want to accuse her blindly. But if he found evidence that she was complicit in building some weird structure, he gave a frustrated shake of his head. That made no sense, right? By early afternoon, Carson was on the road, the city skyline shrinking behind him. Mile after mile, his mind circled the same questions. The possibilities for betrayal, or worse, hammered at his composure. About 3 hours later, he turned onto a narrow gravel road, flicking on his high beams in the fading daylight. A brand-new metal gate blocked the entrance, just as the official notice described. "No trespassing," read a sign on the chain. "No trespassing on my own land," he thought wryly. "This is insane." He hopped out, grabbed bolt cutters from the back seat, and snapped the chain. The gate screeched open. He felt a pang of guilt for damaging property, except it was his property anyway, so he forged on. Gravel crunched under the tires as he followed the newly widened driveway up the slope. At the crest, he saw it. A partially built house, 2 stories tall, a rough skeleton of walls, a broad porch half done. The structure looked expensive. Big windows, brand new plywood, even some partial roofing. At least $10,000 or $20,000 worth of construction so far. Carson parked and just stared. Who the hell built this? And why? He rummaged in his duffel for a small camp stove, deciding to set it up outside. The sun was dipping low, might as well settle in. If someone was using this place at night, he wanted to see it firsthand. Even as he lit the stove, the swirl of Danielle's possible involvement gnawed at him. Could she be flipping this property behind his back? That would be unethical, but maybe not criminal, unless she was working with that shady Beltran guy, funneling drug money. That's a huge leap, Carson, he scolded himself. But the monstrous structure suggested serious money was in play. He grilled a simple dinner, each sizzling minute intensifying his sense of unease. The looming house felt like a silent monument to secrets. Darkness fell. Carson grabbed a flashlight and gingerly stepped inside. Construction materials lay scattered, stacks of drywall, a saw, some power tools. In a corner, an open box spilled papers. Receipts. He knelt, scanning them. The name Beltran Development Services repeated over and over. He recognized Rudy's name as the company manager. So this basically confirmed that Rudy was behind the building. But did Danielle know? The real question. Was she the link? He folded the receipts, tucking them in his jacket pocket. That's when he spotted a coil of wires trailing to the half-finished basement stairs. The entire layout was unusual, like the main level was normal, but the basement was deeper, possibly extended. He tested the basement door. It was locked from the inside. The door looked suspiciously heavy, like reinforced steel. Another alarm bell. By midnight, the temperature dropped. Carson perched near his SUV, scanning the area with the flashlight off. Clouds drifted across a waning moon. He half expected a truck or van to roll in. Part of him wanted answers. Part of him dreaded the confrontation. His phone vibrated. A text from Danielle. "Hope everything's fine. Talk tomorrow." Short, vague. No mention of the shocking project happening on his property. He typed back, "Found a half-built house. Very strange. I'll investigate. Good night." She didn't respond. Surprising? Maybe not. He leaned back in the car seat, dozing. At around 2 a.m., headlights flickered along the gravel road. Carson jolted awake, cutting his own lights. He slid low in the seat, heart pounding. A pickup rolled up, pausing near the porch. A man hopped out, footsteps crunching. Carson recognized the silhouette, that same man who'd come last time with a duffel bag. He'd glimpsed him through the unfinished walls. Blake Murphy, was it? Carson cracked his window to listen. Blake muttered irritably, rummaging around. "Rudy, I told you Danielle said she'd handle it." Hell, does that husband suspect anything? Carson's pulse hammered. Danielle said she'd handle it? This was no innocent realty arrangement. She was involved intimately. Blake lingered maybe 5 minutes, then hopped back in the truck and peeled away. Carson's hands shook on the steering wheel, so it was real. Danielle was in direct contact with these men. Betrayal. He felt it in his bones. Chapter 2. At daybreak, Carson rummaged around the site once more, snapping photos with his phone. He found compartments near the partially finished kitchen area like hidden storage spaces. Everything pointed to a clandestine operation, maybe drugs, arms, or money laundering. He hopped into the SUV, receipts stuffed in a folder, and set off back home. As the miles rolled by, he tried to process the heartbreak. Did Danielle truly betray him? Was she cheating physically, or was it just shady business? The text from Blake referencing her told him it was more than casual. Carson arrived home midday, tension coiled tight. He stepped in, calling out, "Danielle!" She appeared from her office, hair pinned up neatly, wearing a crisp blouse. But there was a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "You're back already?" He nodded, dropping his bag in the foyer. "Got enough info to see a major problem. Someone is building a big structure out there. Do you know anything about it?" He spoke carefully, trying not to show all his cards. She paused, fiddling with her phone. "Carson, I told you I have no idea. Why would I know anything?" He studied her face. She was blinking faster than usual. "Because one of the men on site last night said your name. I recognized him from a real estate event you hosted. Does the name Blake Murphy ring a bell?" Danielle's eyes widened a fraction. "So you were spying around at night? Look, Blake invests in multiple properties. Maybe he got lost? I can't babysit all my clients, babe." Her dismissive wave made his blood simmer. "You sure? Because from what I saw, he's more than a random client." He forced a casual shrug. "Anyway, it's a big headache. I'll have to ask the county to intervene." She took a step closer. "Why stress yourself, honey? Let the county handle it. We can't control random squatters." "Random squatters?" Carson's mind reeled. She was lying straight to his face. "All right, let's see how it plays out," he said coolly, turning away. If she refused to come clean, he needed a better approach. In the following days, Danielle acted overly sweet. She offered to cook him dinner, asked about his cybersecurity projects, stuff she rarely did. The phone calls from Rudy continued to come in, though. Carson occasionally glimpsed his name on her screen. Each time, she stepped into another room to talk. One evening, while they ate takeout sushi, he casually asked, "So, how's Rudy? Is he that big investor you keep mentioning?" She tensed. "He's one of many, yes. Why the sudden interest?" Carson shrugged, chewing a bite of salmon roll. "Just curious if he might want to buy my property for a big construction job. He's apparently partial to building unpermitted houses." Her chopsticks clattered. "What are you implying?" she snapped. He kept his gaze level. "Nothing. Just asking." Inside, his suspicion blazed. Carson got a call from April the next day. He shut himself in his home office to talk. "Carson, you were right. That Rudy Beltran has a record of suspicious real estate deals. Some involve rumored drug stash houses. And guess who's listed as a partial signer on one of his subsidiary accounts?" He swallowed hard. "Danielle?" "Bingo. Danielle Green. It might be a forging of her name, but it's under her realty business. Not sure if that's official, but I have a few scanned docs. I'll forward them." Carson's chest tightened. "Thanks, April. This is terrible. Let me know if you find anything else." Clicking off, he stared at the blank wall. Danielle might be forging docs or, worse, willingly signing them. And if it was indeed a drug stash house, she was an accomplice. He felt physically ill, but there was more. The late nights, the secrecy, the closeness to Rudy. It screamed infidelity, emotional or sexual or both. That night, Danielle was in a good mood, humming while she typed on her laptop. Carson braced himself, stepping into the living room. "We need to talk. It can't wait." Her smile faltered. "Sure. What's going on?" He folded his arms. "I spoke with a friend who found documents linking your name to Rudy Beltran's shell company. He's building on my land, possibly storing illegal goods. You have any explanation?" She stared at him, face paling. "Why would I link my name? That's insane. You must be mistaken, or that friend is feeding you lies." Carson gave a short laugh. "I saw the structure in person. Also, last night you got a text from Rudy. We can meet at the cabin again, your husband won't suspect." "Sound familiar?" Danielle's eyes flicked to the side, lips parted. "Carson, you're reading my texts? That's an invasion of privacy." "Don't pivot. Answer the question," he hissed. "Are you colluding with him?" Silence. Then she set her laptop aside, crossing her arms. "You're being paranoid. I might have used your property's address to explore a side deal. It's not criminal, just hush-hush. Real estate is cutthroat. I needed to keep it under wraps to get a commission." He felt fury flicker in his chest. "And the affair? Because it sure as hell sounds like you two are more than colleagues." Her eyes flashed with indignation. "Affair? God, Carson, do you realize how insane that is? Rudy is, he's a contact, yes, but I'm not sleeping with him. You're letting your jealousy run wild. He wanted to scream, but instead pressed his lips together. I'm not an idiot, Danielle. I'm done letting you spin this. I'll figure out the truth on my own. She glared. Then figure it out. But don't blame me when you make a fool of yourself. She stormed off, slamming the bedroom door. Carson trembled with anger. Everything in her demeanor reeked of lies. If she thought he'd back off, she was wrong. After that confrontation, Carson decided to up his game. He installed a small hidden camera in Danielle's home office, angled to capture her desk. He also added phone logging software so he could see her messages in real time. He felt guilty about the intrusion, but reasoned that if she was conspiring to set him up or cheat on him, he had to protect himself. 2 days later, he checked the camera feed from his laptop while she was out. He saw her hunched over the desk, phone on speaker. Yes, Rudy, relax, she murmured to the invisible caller. Carson is suspicious, but I think I can keep him off our backs. The half-finished house is fine. Just stash the product for a bit longer, then we can shift it. No, he won't do anything drastic. Carson's heart hammered. The entire clip was about controlling him, stashing product. She was knee-deep in criminal activity. That sealed it. But then her tone dropped to a sultry hush. And I miss you, babe. Meeting at the motel was too quick last time. Let's do it again soon. Carson nearly retched. She was calling Rudy babe. Confirmed. She was cheating on him, along with assisting in a drug stash scheme on his land. A wave of rage and heartbreak threatened to swallow him whole. He drove to a local diner where he'd asked April to meet him privately. They slid into a booth. April looked concerned the moment she saw his face. Carson, you look like you've seen a ghost. What happened? He rubbed his temples. I got video. Danielle told Rudy she can keep me off their backs. She's calling him babe. They're storing product, likely drugs, on my property. And she's sleeping with him. The last words came out ragged. April reached across to squeeze his hand. I'm so sorry. That's horrifying. You have all the proof? He nodded. Footage, texts, everything. I want to expose them. But I have to be careful. If they're dangerous criminals, they might harm me if they realize I know too much. April nodded grimly. You should definitely get law enforcement involved. More than just local police, someone who can handle a drug ring. FBI, maybe? He fiddled with the sugar packet. Yeah, there's a detective friend, Tessa, who suggested the FBI if I found real proof. I guess it's time. April's eyes shone with sympathy. I hate that you're going through this, but you have to protect yourself. No telling what Danielle or Rudy might do if cornered. Carson's jaw tightened. I'm done playing nice. She's not just cheating, she's basically orchestrating a crime behind my back. I'm going to bury them both. Returning home, Carson found Danielle in the kitchen slicing vegetables. She greeted him with a forced smile. Hey, I wanted to make us a nice salad. Figured we could talk, maybe? He stared, remembering the recorded call. Talk about what? She set the knife down. I realize we've been off lately. Maybe you're suspicious about me and Rudy. We're just professionally close, that's all. He gave a bitter chuckle. Professionally close enough to store illegal contraband in my grandmother's property basement? Her face froze. You keep bringing that up like you have proof. If you do, show me. Otherwise, let's drop it. He held her gaze a moment, then pivoted. Don't bother with dinner. I lost my appetite. Marching to the bedroom, he left her standing in the kitchen, tension thick in the air. Late that night, Carson locked his office door, phone pressed to his ear. Detective Tessa Vaughn's voice was calm on the other end. He told her everything, the secret building, the evidence of possible drug stashing, the affair. Tessa sighed. This is bigger than just me. I'll pull some strings with a friend at the FBI. If Danielle and Rudy are part of a trafficking ring, we want the bigger fish too. But you gotta be careful, Carson. This is the kind of situation that can get violent. He nodded, though she couldn't see him. I know. I won't do anything rash. But I do want to see them burn. Danielle especially for all her betrayal. A pause. I get it. We'll coordinate. Meanwhile, keep collecting data. But watch your back. He hung up, feeling a strange calm. The wheels were turning. Soon, Danielle would regret every bit of her deception. 2 days later, Danielle left for an alleged out-of-town showing. Carson stayed behind, scanning the hidden camera feed. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Opening it, he found Blake Murphy standing there, expression stormy. Carson's adrenaline spiked. "Yes? Can I help you?" Blake gave a thin grin. "We gotta talk. Danielle said you've been snooping around. You need to back off. Understand?" His stance radiated threat. Carson forced a calm expression. "What exactly am I backing off from?" Blake's grin vanished. "Don't be a smartass. Danielle's got big deals going, and you're messing it up with your questions. We wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen, right?" Carson's heart pounded, but he kept his cool. "You threatening me on my own porch, buddy?" Blake shrugged. "Just friendly advice. You keep your nose out of Danielle's business. She wants it that way, too." He turned, striding back to his car. "Have a nice day, pal." As the engine roared away, Carson stood trembling. So Danielle was sending her cronies to intimidate him. That was the final straw. Chapter 3. The next morning, Tessa arranged a meeting with an FBI special agent named Justine Hawks at a discreet cafe on the outskirts of town. Carson sat in a corner booth, tension in every fiber of his body. Tessa arrived first, then Agent Hawks, a sharp-eyed woman in a dark blazer. Carson laid out the whole twisted story: the property, the half-finished house, Danielle's involvement with Rudy, the possibility of drug smuggling, the camera footage, the intimidation from Blake. Agent Hawks listened intently. "So your wife effectively conspired to use your inherited land for storing illegal goods, correct? And you have video evidence?" Carson nodded, sliding a flash drive across the table. "Recordings, text logs, plus pictures of the basement compartments?" Agent Hawks scanned the flash drive as if measuring its weight. "This is significant. If Beltran is indeed part of a larger trafficking ring, the Bureau's been after him. We suspected he used real estate fronts. I see your wife might be providing the front. I'm sorry, Mr. Green." Carson's jaw clenched. "I want them taken down, but I also want a chance to confront Danielle personally. She humiliated me, plotted behind my back, cheated." Justine nodded carefully. "I understand the personal angle. The FBI's priority is dismantling the operation. If we can coordinate a sting, we'll gather evidence of the shipments. Meanwhile, we'll keep you updated. But you must keep acting normal so they don't suspect a tip-off." He sat back, exhaling. "Act normal while she's hooking up with that scumbag. Fine, I can do it." Tessa gave him a sympathetic look. "We'll help keep you safe, but you gotta stay calm." Calm was the last thing he felt. When he got home, Danielle's car was in the driveway. She'd said she'd be gone for 2 days, but apparently changed plans. Inside, he found her in the living room, phone to her ear, pacing. She ended the call abruptly upon seeing him. "You're back," she said, forcing a smile. "Everything okay?" He set his keys down, controlling his fury. "Peachy. Blake dropped by, told me to stop snooping. That's not suspicious at all, right?" Her face tightened. "Carson, you're exaggerating. Blake might just be worried you're messing up a business venture. He's not violent." Carson let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, so you condone him threatening me?" She rubbed her temples. "Look, we don't have to fight. Let's just drop it. You keep pushing. You know how real estate can be. People get protective about deals." He stepped closer, voice low. "You're telling me you don't realize how insane you sound? The deal is happening on my land with some shady contraband. I should be protective. This is my property, Danielle, my family's, and you're using it behind my back with that asshole Rudy. For God's sake, just admit it." She glared, lips curling. "Fine, yes, I partnered with Rudy. He pays me a commission for letting him store items. It's not harmful. It's just an arrangement. You wouldn't understand how cutthroat the business is." He clenched his fists. "Cutthroat enough to cheat on your husband, too?" She looked away, color flooding her cheeks. "It's complicated, all right? Don't pretend our marriage was perfect. You're always so consumed by your cybersecurity job, ignoring me." He cut her off, voice cold. "Stop blaming me for your affair. I'll never forgive you for this." She pressed her lips together, eyes suspiciously bright, but said nothing. Then she spun on her heel and marched to the bedroom, slamming the door. Carson stared after her, mind swirling with betrayal. Let her hide in there, he thought bitterly. The FBI net was closing anyway. The next day, Agent Hawks texted him, Need more intel on next large shipment. Any mention from wife or Beltran? Carson scanned Danielle's phone logs. He still had remote access. That afternoon, she texted Rudy, "We'll move the load Friday night. Blake has trucks. Keep Carson away." Carson's pulse raced. Friday night. That was soon. He forwarded the text to Hawks. She replied immediately, "We'll be ready. Keep a low profile." Low profile. That meant continuing to feign ignorance. Meanwhile, Danielle planned to slip out Friday night, presumably meeting at the property with trucks. He suppressed a shudder. He'd ensure they walked straight into the FBI trap. Throughout the week, Danielle seemed strangely keyed up. She paced in the evenings, phone always in hand, snapping at Carson over minor issues. He recognized the signs of stress. She was worried about him, or about this upcoming load. Possibly both. Thursday night, as they quietly ate dinner, she broke the silence. "Carson, let's take a weekend trip soon. Maybe we can fix things. We can talk about our marriage in a nicer setting." He almost choked on his water. The nerve of her to suggest romance while actively plotting with Rudy? "A weekend trip? I thought you were too busy with your big deals." She forced a smile. "We can find time. Just maybe next weekend?" He set down his fork. "We'll see." Inwardly, he added, "If you're not in jail by then." She sighed and pushed her plate away, muttering something about calling a client. He watched her walk off, anger smoldering behind his calm facade. Friday morning, Danielle was up at dawn, rummaging in the closet. She picked out snug jeans, a casual jacket, an odd outfit for a real estate agent who normally wore business attire. She pressed a quick kiss to Carson's cheek. "Got a site visit in the evening. Don't wait up, okay?" He swallowed the bile in his throat. "All right, don't be too late." She flinched, possibly hearing the underlying threat in his voice. Then she hurried out. Once the door shut, Carson exhaled shakily. The sting operation was presumably set for tonight. He texted Hawks. "She just left. Probably the final prep. I'll keep watch from a distance, be careful." She responded, "We got this. Don't do anything risky." All day, Carson milled around the house, mind whirring. He set up a location tracker on Danielle's phone. By 6 p.m., she was at a motel on the outskirts of town, presumably meeting Rudy. Then around 8 p.m., her phone pinged near the property site. Perfect. Right on schedule. He grabbed his jacket, jumped into his SUV. He'd position himself near the property entrance, let the FBI handle the criminals. Once they were caught red-handed, he'd step in. He needed to see that betrayal unravel in real time. Maybe it was reckless, but he had to witness Danielle's face when the hammer dropped. Twilight darkened the sky as Carson parked discreetly on a side gravel path. Through the trees, he spotted silhouettes of people near the half-finished house. Headlights illuminated shapes unloading large boxes from trucks. The same trucks he suspected carried narcotics or contraband. He recognized Danielle's figure off to the side, phone flashlight guiding some men, and next to her, Rudy, tall and broad-shouldered, leaning in close to speak with her. Carson's jaw tightened at the intimacy. He texted Hawks, "They're active now." She replied, "Team in position, hold tight." Suddenly, the beams of a flashlight swung across the trees, shining near his SUV. Carson ducked. A figure Blake walked closer, scanning the perimeter. Carson's heart pounded. If discovered, they might confront or harm him before the FBI swooped in. Thankfully, Blake's phone buzzed, diverting his attention. He turned, jogging back to the group. Carson exhaled. That was close. In the next instant, multiple sets of headlights roared up the gravel road. Out stepped men in dark jackets shouting, "FBI! Hands up now!" Chaos exploded. The criminals shouted curses. Some tried to flee. Others froze in panic. Carson watched from behind a cluster of pines. Agents in bulletproof vests poured out, weapons drawn. He glimpsed Tessa among them, yelling for everyone to get on the ground. Danielle shrieked, "What the? Rudy, do something!" Rudy lunged behind a truck, only to be tackled by two agents. Boxes crashed onto the ground, revealing what looked like packaged bricks of something. Danielle stumbled, wide-eyed, half screaming, "No! This is a misunderstanding!" Once the area was secure, Carson stepped forward, heart pounding. Danielle was in handcuffs, hair disheveled, fear etched across her face. She spotted him, eyes blazing. Carson, you set this up? You traitor? He stared at her, cold fury mingled with heartbreak. Me, a traitor? You cheated on me. You used my land for a drug ring. You threatened me through your cronies. This is on you, Danielle, she wailed, looking to Agent Hawks, searching for any lifeline. I was forced. Rudy blackmailed me. Rudy, pinned by an agent, spat at her. Don't drag me down. You volunteered. It was pure chaos of blame and denial. Carson let it wash over him, a strange numbness in his chest. He'd wanted revenge, and here it was, public, humiliating, final. Danielle Green, you have the right to remain silent, an agent recited. She let out a sob, glancing helplessly at Carson. He shook his head, stepping away, ignoring her pleas. The long months of suspicion and heartbreak had culminated in this single, savage moment of justice. Chapter 4. Blue and red lights flashed across the property, teams securing evidence in the basement. Carson lingered near a battered porch post, watching from a distance. Agents carted out sealed packages from hidden compartments, snapping photos, logging it all. Danielle and Rudy were led to separate FBI vehicles, both in cuffs. She shot Carson a final furious glare, tears streaking her cheeks before they drove off. He felt no pity, only a hollow sense of finality. Tessa approached him, her voice gentle. You okay, Carson? He nodded, throat tight. I guess. Just can't believe it ended like this. She was my wife. Tessa pressed a hand to his shoulder. She made her choices. I'm sorry, but you did the right thing. They were planning bigger shipments, maybe worse crimes. You shut it down. Carson inhaled a shaky breath. Yeah, it's just 8 years of marriage, gone like that. He swallowed. Thanks for everything, Tessa. She offered a faint smile. We'll talk soon. The FBI might want more statements from you. For now, go home. Get some rest, okay? He nodded, feeling the adrenaline crash. Home was where Danielle used to be. Now it was just an empty house with memories. Curiosity tugged at Carson. The FBI had roped off part of the basement, but once most agents had cleared out, he asked Tessa if he could peek down there. She okayed it, cautioning him not to touch anything. With a flashlight, he descended the concrete steps. The space was bigger than he realized, walls lined with metal shelving. In the corner, large plastic bins presumably held more contraband. The door from the inside had multiple deadbolts. They really meant to lock someone in, possibly him, if he'd gotten in their way. He swallowed, goosebumps creeping over his arms. The sense of violation was overwhelming on top of the personal betrayal. They'd turned his grandmother's inherited land into a criminal lair. He flicked off the flashlight, heading back upstairs. Enough. By midday, local news crews arrived, sniffing out the big bust. Cameras aimed at the half-built house, a reporter shouting, Sir, can you comment on the drug operation discovered here? Carson shook his head, stepping around them. Tessa stepped in, giving a brief statement. We have no comment at this time. An ongoing federal investigation is in progress. The cameras then pivoted to Carson. We understand your wife was arrested. Is that correct? He glared, refusing to speak. The reporter pressed, Any truth to rumors she was the mastermind? He brushed past, ignoring the microphones. Public humiliation aside, this was bigger than scandal. Danielle deserved whatever scorn came her way, but he wouldn't feed the news frenzy. Hours later, Carson climbed into his SUV and drove away from the property. The drive felt endless, the events replaying in his mind. Danielle's face as she realized he'd outsmarted her, the anger and desperation in her eyes. He'd pictured wanting to see her shattered expression, but now it left him numb. He parked in his suburban driveway, noticing Danielle's car was gone, impounded, or left at the scene. The house was eerily quiet. He closed the door behind him, the silence ringing in his ears. So this was life without her presence. Inside, he wandered into Danielle's office. She'd left behind a few folders. He hesitated, then began rifling through them. Many documents on real estate listings, some legit, others suspicious. A personal spiral notebook lay at the bottom of a drawer. He flipped it open, scrawled notes referencing Rudy, shipment, Carson can't suspect, and so forth. The final line read, If Carson finds out, maybe we can keep him quiet in the basement, no other choice. His stomach churned. She'd literally considered locking him up to keep him from talking. The woman he once loved was ready to trap him. He clenched his fists. Anger flared, mixing with heartbreak. Late that night, his phone buzzed with a restricted number. He had a feeling who it was. Against better judgment, he answered. "Carson," came Danielle's tearful voice. "Oh my God, they have me at the county lockup. You have to help me. This is all a misunderstanding." He forced a bitter laugh. "A misunderstanding? You stored drugs, you threatened me, you carried on with Rudy. That's a hell of a misunderstanding." She sniffled, voice cracking. "I was cornered. Rudy blackmailed me. The affair was, I only did it to keep him from hurting you. Please, babe." He closed his eyes. "You're unbelievable. We have recordings of you calling him babe, laughing about how I wouldn't suspect. Save your breath." A pause. Then she exploded in anger. "How could you do this to me? We're married. You set me up." Rage spiked in his chest. "Don't you dare put this on me. You did it to yourself. Enjoy prison." He ended the call, blocking the number. Let her stew in jail. Unable to sleep, he texted Tessa. "She just called from jail, playing victim. I blocked her." Tessa replied, "Good. Don't let her manipulate you. She's facing serious charges federal level. No escaping that." Carson typed back, "Thanks for your help. I owe you." He stared at the phone screen, emotions swirling. A part of him still felt shattered, 8 years of memories overshadowed by this monstrous betrayal. Another part was just coldly furious. This would not break him. He wouldn't let her have that satisfaction. Dawn light filtered through the windows. Carson barely slept, so he rose early, made coffee, scrolled the local news. Headlines screamed, "Major drug bust tied to local realtor husband exposes criminal plot." He took a bitter sip of coffee. So it was out there, public, humiliating. Neighbors would whisper, old friends would see. Danielle's name was tarnished forever. Maybe in some twisted sense that was the revenge he'd craved, but it felt hollow. He set the mug down, forcibly pushing the heartbreak aside. He had a life to rebuild, an inheritance to salvage, and a wife turned criminal to divorce. Agent Justine Hawks called mid-morning. "We've booked Rudy and Danielle on trafficking and conspiracy charges. They might face additional counts if more evidence emerges. Also, the materials from your property were clearly narcotics. This is a big win for us." Carson exhaled. "Good. Let them rot. What do I do about the half-finished structure?" She paused. "Legally, it's your land. You can demolish or repurpose it, though we might want it intact until we finish collecting evidence. After that, it's your call. Sorry you got dragged into this." "Not your fault," he murmured. "Thanks, Agent Hawks." He ended the call, mulling the question of what to do with that haunted half-building. Maybe tearing it down was best. Erase all traces of her crimes. By evening, the dust seemed to settle. The media attention waned. Carson sat in his living room, reflections swirling. Danielle was in custody. The FBI had locked down the property for evidence. His phone no longer buzzed with her frantic texts or calls. A strange peace descended, tinged with sorrow. He closed his eyes, recalling her final stricken look as the agents cuffed her. The vow he'd made to punish her for the cheating, the betrayal, had been fulfilled. Yet the cost was a chunk of his life that felt irreparably lost. In time, he'd have to move forward, finalize a divorce, face the legal complexities. For now, he let the quiet envelop him. This was the end of one path, the start of a new one, albeit with scars and anger woven into every step. Chapter 5. Carson woke up on his living room couch, stiff-necked and exhausted, a half-empty mug of cold coffee on the table beside him. He'd dozed off at some point, still in the clothes from the night before, jeans, a rumpled polo, and the same 1,000-yard stare he'd worn when he saw Danielle led away in cuffs. He blinked, focusing on the faint morning light that filtered through the blinds. The house was hauntingly quiet. No footsteps from Danielle, no phone buzzing with her calls, nothing but the hush of an empty home. This was it, life without her physical presence or her countless deceptions swirling around him. A swirl of conflicting emotions assaulted him. Relief that the criminal enterprise was broken, anger at the betrayal, a hollow longing for the comforting illusions that had been his marriage for so many years. He rubbed his eyes and reached for his phone, scanning the local news feed. Carson took a shaky breath. The public humiliation was real. The entire city and beyond knew Danielle's name now. He flicked the phone aside, not even sure how to feel. Perhaps this was the closure he wanted, or perhaps his ordeal had only begun. Determined not to wallow, he forced himself to stand, rolled his shoulders, and shuffled to the kitchen to brew a fresh pot of coffee. That was the first step forward, facing each day, one at a time. By late morning, he found himself in a small conference room at the FBI's local field office, a building of beige walls and non-nonsense decor. Agent Justine Hawks greeted him, firm handshake, her dark hair pulled into a neat ponytail. "Carson, thanks for coming." She offered him a seat. Another agent, Stockton, a broad-shouldered man, stepped inside, nodding politely. Carson settled in, hands clasped. "So you said there's more to discuss?" Justine placed a few files on the table. "We want your formal statement about Danielle's involvement. We also need to see if you have any additional info on Rudy's network. You see, after last night's bust, we found more leads pointing to bigger players people Rudy might have been funneling product for." Carson's jaw tensed. "Bigger players the operation extends beyond them?" She nodded gravely. "Yes. It appears Danielle's part was not just an affair or random wrongdoing. There might be higher-level traffickers. That said, your testimony's crucial for the upcoming indictment. We appreciate your cooperation." Carson swallowed, glancing at the pictures of the confiscated contraband. Among them were bricks of narcotics, bags of pills, wads of cash. "I'll do whatever's needed. I want this to be over." Justine exchanged a look with Agent Stockton. "We understand. We'll try to keep your role minimal in the public eye. The media's already swirling about your wife's betrayal, so we won't add to the frenzy." Carson mustered a tight smile. "Thank you." A pang of guilt and grief twisted in his chest. He never wanted to be in this position, much less the star witness against his own spouse. That afternoon, Carson returned home to find an envelope tucked under his front doormat. Inside was a note from a neighbor, Linda. "Carson, I'm so sorry about what's happening. We had no idea Danielle was into something like that. Please know we're here if you need anything, groceries, a listening ear, anything at all. Linda and Mark." He let out a breath, touched by the kind gesture, but also mortified that everyone on the block likely knew the dirty details. He pictured them whispering behind curtains as the news vans came by, or rerunning that footage of Danielle being arrested. The pity in Linda's note stung, but it was well-intentioned. His phone buzzed a text from April. She'd been a steadfast friend through the fiasco. "Heard about the FBI statement. Let me know if you want to come over for dinner. We can talk or not talk your call." He appreciated that she never forced conversation. "Maybe tomorrow," he typed. "Thanks." Just days ago, he had a wife, a semblance of normalcy. Now, the entire suburban bubble had shattered. He carried the note from Linda inside, feeling both exhaustion and a flicker of gratitude that not everyone in the world was a traitor. After tidying up the living room, which still had scattered real estate brochures from Danielle's last frantic hustle, Carson ventured into their shared home office, once a place of laughter and shared planning. Now it felt like a tomb of secrets. He started rummaging through the bottom drawer of Danielle's lockable filing cabinet. He'd found partial docs there before, but now he wanted a thorough search. With a small screwdriver, he popped the flimsy lock. Inside lay more files labeled Beltran Holdings, BB Holdings LLC, and receipts from months back. The amounts were staggering. Large sums credited to Danielle's personal account. He recognized the bank statements referencing royalties or consulting fees, but he suspected it was all laundered drug money. A wave of disgust washed over him. She'd used their joint finances to mask criminal funds. One paper indicated a deposit made only 3 weeks ago, $50,000. Another detail, from T.W. Armstrong, Redwood City. So there might be more shadowy figures beyond Rudy. He carefully snapped photos of each document, determined to share these with Agent Hawks. The deeper he dug, the more he realized Danielle had been building this scheme for a while, possibly even from the start of her so-called big real estate success. His stomach lurched, recalling how proud he'd been of her ambition. He ground his teeth, fury stoking again. How could she? He muttered to no one. She must have known how vile it all was. or maybe greed overshadowed moral sense. Either way, the wife he thought he knew was gone, replaced by a cunning partner to criminals. That evening, the doorbell chimed. Carson opened it to Detective Tessa Vaughn, her posture as upright as always. She wore a casual jacket, off-duty style. She offered a gentle half-smile. "Hey," she said softly. "I wanted to see how you were holding up. Mind if I come in for a bit?" He nodded, stepping aside. "Sure, Tessa. I appreciate it." They ended up in the living room, Tessa declining coffee, settling on the couch. She studied him carefully. "Rough couple days, I'm sure." Carson gave a wry laugh. "Understatement. Everything's flipped upside down. Not to mention everyone at the precinct must be buzzing about the scandal." Tessa sighed. "They are, but I'm shutting that gossip down. You're the victim here. Danielle's choices are on her." She paused, meeting his eyes. "Carson, have you processed that she might get a lengthy prison sentence? Are you prepared for that reality?" He swallowed. The question jarred him. "Part of me is prepared. Part of me still can't believe it's real." She leaned forward, compassion in her gaze. "You did the right thing, though. She was dangerous, Rudy and Blake even more so. They'd have taken advantage of you indefinitely. Or worse." "Yeah," he rasped, recalling the basement door's heavy bolts. "Guess I'm still in shock." A silence fell, laden with unspoken feelings. Tessa had been a good friend once, back in high school, before life took them different directions. He'd reconnected with her purely by chance, ironically drawn together by Danielle's crime. Now he felt a curious warmth in Tessa's presence, perhaps a flicker of trust he desperately needed. He cleared his throat, glancing away. "Anyway, thanks for checking on me. It means a lot." She reached out, gently squeezing his shoulder. "I'll always have your back. Don't hesitate to call me if you need anything advice or just to vent." He managed a faint smile. "Will do." And with that, she left, leaving him a little less lonely in the silent house. At around midnight, Carson's phone buzzed again with a restricted number. He nearly ignored it, but curiosity got the better of him. Upon accepting a recorded voice, "This is a call from the Coldwater County Detention Facility. Press 1 to accept." He pressed 1, heart thudding. Danielle's voice came on, raw. "Carson, please don't hang up." He closed his eyes. "Why are you calling again?" "Because I can't do this alone. My lawyer says the feds are piling charges on me. They found your land records, my name on them. They want to pin me as a major conspirator. I might never see daylight if they succeed." He inhaled a slow breath. "And you're telling me this because—" Her voice cracked. "I need you to testify that I was forced, that Rudy threatened us. You know me, I would never hurt you. I was trying to protect you from him." Carson barked a humorless laugh. "Protect me? By planning to lock me in the basement if I got too nosy? You told him I'd never see it coming. That's your idea of protection? Spare me the lies, Danielle." "I have all your recorded calls, remember?" She sobbed openly. "I made mistakes, horrible mistakes, but I still love you. We can fix this. If you help me get out, I'll do anything." His chest tightened, old heartbreak clashing with new anger. "You had an affair. You laundered drug money. You threatened me. There's no future for us. I'm cooperating with the FBI, and that's final." Her sobs turned to a scathing hiss. "You'll regret this, Carson. They'll demonize me, but I'll drag your name in too. I'll say you knew about everything from the start. Then we'll both go down." He forced a steadiness into his tone. "Go ahead. The FBI's seen my evidence. They know who set this up. You have nothing left to threaten me with." Her breath caught, as if she realized the futility. But I—" Then the line cut. She must have ended the call or run out of her allotted time. Carson lowered the phone slowly. If she was lashing out like that, she was truly desperate. Let her. He tossed the phone onto the coffee table, chest tight. The woman he loved was gone, replaced by a frantic criminal who'd do anything to save herself. The next day, he heard a knock on the door. He opened it to see two longtime friends, Jason and Melissa, each wearing cautious smiles. They'd heard the news and decided to check on him. He ushered them in, offering coffee. Jason, a tall, bearded man who'd known Carson since college, spoke first. "Man, we saw the coverage. Are you okay?" Carson shrugged, numb. "As well as can be expected. Sorry you had to find out this way." Melissa frowned sympathetically. We never suspected Danielle was like that. She always seemed so polished, so ambitious. Guess you never know what's beneath the surface. Yeah. Carson sighed. I was blind to it too. She kept me in the dark. Jason squeezed Carson's shoulder in solidarity. We wanted you to know we've got your back. If you need a place to crash or help with anything, just holler. Carson managed a grateful nod. Thanks, guys. It means a lot. Right now, I'm just dealing with the legal stuff, and the FBI has me testifying. Once that's over, I might need a serious break or a road trip to clear my head. Melissa offered an encouraging smile. We'll be here. Don't be a stranger, okay? He saw genuine concern in their eyes, and for a moment, the crushing isolation lightened. He wasn't alone, even if Danielle had tried to make him feel that way. Later, Carson's phone rang with an unknown local number. A crisp, female voice introduced herself. I'm Angela Sloan, your assigned victim witness advocate from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We'd like to discuss the upcoming preliminary hearing for Danielle Green and her associates. Carson rubbed his forehead. All right, so I'm testifying, correct? Yes, most likely. Preliminary hearing is scheduled in 2 weeks. We'll have you identify those documents you provided, confirm the property belonged to you, that you never authorized the contraband storage. He felt a wave of dread. That means I'll see Danielle in court again. Yes, she might attempt to discredit you or claim spousal privilege, but rest assured we have strong evidence. You'll be protected. I'll guide you through the process. Carson nodded, though she couldn't see. Thanks. I appreciate it. He hung up, the weight of an upcoming courtroom showdown pressing on his mind. Not just testifying that she committed crimes, but seeing her face again, hearing her voice in that official setting. Could he handle that? Anger roiled in him, but so did an undercurrent of raw pain. The afternoon passed in a fog, and by evening Carson found himself aimlessly reorganizing the closet, tossing Danielle's clothes into boxes. He hated the smell of her perfume lingering on jackets. Every item reminded him of the nights they'd gone out to dinner, the times they'd traveled. Had all those memories been a sham? He slumped onto the bed, letting out a shaky breath. This was heartbreak overshadowed by criminal betrayal. He stared at the ring on his own finger. He'd never removed it, but it felt like a dead weight. Eventually, he pulled it off, setting it carefully on the nightstand. With that gesture, it was as if he'd closed a chapter of illusions. The anger smoldered beneath the grief, fueling a determination to see justice done, to reclaim his life, his grandmother's land, everything Danielle had tainted. He whispered to the dark room, I'll be free of this. I promise. As midnight approached, he revisited the documents from Danielle's hidden files. He sorted them systematically, scanning each page into a secure folder on his laptop, a digital record for the FBI and his own personal arsenal if Danielle tried further manipulation. When he finally shut his laptop, the hush of the house pressed in again, but this time there was a glimmer of resolve in the emptiness. He would keep moving forward. No matter how twisted the path, he'd see it through to the end. Chapter 6. It was a brisk Saturday morning when the doorbell rang again. Carson, half expecting another neighbor or reporter, opened up to see a tall woman with sharp features, mid-30s, wearing a black jacket. Her eyes held a hint of frustration and concern. Carson, I'm Justine, Danielle's older sister. He blinked in surprise. Danielle had rarely mentioned her sister, describing her as somewhere upstate. We're not close. Now here she was, apparently having caught wind of the scandal. Hi, come in. Inside, she stood stiffly near the couch. So, I guess you know Danielle's in jail. Carson pursed his lips. Yes, I'm well aware. Did you come to defend her? Because you might not like what I have to say. Justine shook her head, not to be confused with Agent Justine Hawk's coincidental same first name. We were estranged for years. I only heard from a cousin about her arrest. I had no idea she was mixed up in something so insane. He folded his arms, feeling a sliver of empathy. Well, I can confirm she's deeply involved. She betrayed me, cheated with some criminal named Rudy, and nearly got me framed or locked up. Justine exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. I'm so sorry. She and I never got along, but this is beyond anything I imagined. I just wanted to see if you have any clue what triggered her to go down this path. Money? Power? Resentment? Carson shrugged, bitterness creeping into his voice. All of the above. She always wanted success. Maybe greed took over. I can't psychoanalyze her anymore. A long pause. Then Justine said softly, "Thanks for letting me in. If it's okay, I might want to check on her at the jail, but I won't cause trouble for you. I just needed to see the picture for myself." He inclined his head. "You can do what you want. She might spin a sob story, but I doubt you can help her avoid prison." She nodded, turning to go. At the door, she paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. No one deserves this betrayal. If you need a statement about her past or anything, let me know. She was always secretive, though. Hard to read." Carson offered a faint, sad smile. "Thank you, Justine. Take care." As she left, he reflected on how Danielle's family ties were as murky as everything else about her. Another reminder that he'd never truly known his wife's depths. 2 days later, a uniformed courier delivered a thick envelope labeled Hampton and Friedman Law Associates, presumably Danielle's defense firm. Carson opened it warily. Inside was a formal letter. "Dear Mr. Green, we represent Miss Danielle Green in pending legal matters. She has indicated a desire to request certain marital assets be preserved. Furthermore, Miss Green states you possess documents that unfairly incriminate her." Carson skimmed the lines, mouth twisting in anger. The letter implied Danielle wanted to freeze joint bank accounts, prevent him from demolishing or selling the property, and demanded copies of all documentation he gave to the FBI, citing spousal rights. He nearly ripped the letter in half. She was behind bars, yet still trying to tie his hands legally. The gall. With a steadying breath, he dialed a local attorney recommended by Tessa. By afternoon, Carson sat across from Miss Farah Kim, a poised woman in her 40s with a reputation for fierce representation in divorces and property disputes. He handed her the letter. She scanned it, brow arching. "Well, they're basically threatening a countersuit to hamper you. They'll claim spousal privilege or marital asset rights." Carson stifled a groan. "Can they do that successfully?" Farah shrugged. "They can try. But given the criminal charges, that property is evidence in a federal case. Typically, a defendant can't block the rightful owner from cooperating with law enforcement. Also, spousal privilege doesn't apply to criminal conspiracies, so we have strong grounds to contest it." He exhaled relief. "That's good. I want no illusions that she can pin anything on me or keep me from using my land." "Understood." Farah smiled reassuringly. "First step. We file a motion in civil court to protect your property rights. I'll also counter any attempt for Danielle to claim your funds. Once that's in motion, you can plan the next steps, possibly divorcing her, dividing assets. The criminal case might overshadow some aspects, but we'll handle it." Carson nodded, gratitude flooding him. Finally, he had a professional in his corner. "Thank you. Let's do whatever it takes." She set the letter aside. "I'll draft a response to her lawyers. Let them know we're not rolling over. And if it goes further, we'll be ready." Feeling some measure of calm, Carson shook her hand. The war might be just beginning in the courts, but at least he wasn't alone. That night, while Carson tried to focus on a project for his cybersecurity clients, his phone rang, another restricted number. He sighed, suspecting Danielle or her lawyer again. He pressed accept. A gruff male voice said, "Yo, Green, you might not know me. Name's Theo Masterson. I used to roll with Rudy. He's in lockup. Same as your wife. Word is you fed the feds all the intel." Carson's pulse quickened. "Another criminal?" "Yeah, so what?" Theo chuckled darkly. "So you might want to watch your back, man. Rudy's pissed. He's telling folks you set them up that maybe you've got your own skeletons. I'm not saying he's got any real leverage, but watch out if he tries to smear you in or out of court." Carson bit back a curse. "I have nothing to hide. Let him talk. The FBI knows the truth." "Suit yourself," Theo replied. "I'm just doing you a favor, giving you a heads up. See, some of Rudy's old pals blame you for the ring collapsing. They might want payback." He paused. "And with Danielle in there, who knows what she'll say to cut a deal?" Carson's mouth went dry. "Understood. Thanks for the warning, I guess, but I'm not backing down from the truth." Theo gave a short laugh. "Brave stance. Just remember, criminals behind bars can still orchestrate trouble. Careful, Green." The call ended. Carson sat there, the quiet house feeling too large and unprotected. He realized that even with them locked away, the threat wasn't gone. He quickly texted Tessa about the call, documenting everything. So much for a peaceful path forward. A few days later, Agent Hawks called, sounding both bemused and serious. "Carson, we've gotten word from the county jail. Danielle is making statements to fellow inmates claiming you were the mastermind, that she was coerced. She's spinning wild stories that you forced her to launder money. Just a heads-up." Carson groaned, massaging his temples. "I suspected she might do that. She threatened me on the phone." Hawks sighed. "We're not taking her claims seriously. We have your recordings, plus the timeline. But just so you know, the defense might attempt that angle in court. Be mentally prepared. They might paint you as some controlling spouse who made her handle dirty finances." A bitter laugh escaped him. "Great, well, I have enough evidence to bury that lie. Let them try." Hawks reassured him. "Exactly. Don't worry. The U.S. Attorney's Office sees right through it. Just keep everything documented." He hung up, fury simmering. Danielle was flailing. She'd burned every bridge, and now the only strategy left was to drag him into the mud with her. He clenched his jaw. She'd fail. Early the next morning, Carson drove out to the property. The FBI had mostly finished their on-site evidence collection, though they hadn't officially released it from being a crime scene. He stepped out onto the gravel and gazed at the half-finished structure, a testament to greed and betrayal, perched on land that once was meant for something wholesome. Sunlight glinted off the bare plywood walls. He walked around the perimeter, trying to envision if he could salvage it. Or was it better to demolish everything and start fresh? Memories of his grandmother flashed through his mind, her proud stories of the farmland, her wish for him to keep a piece of the family legacy. This twisted construction was a stain on that legacy. He found himself leaning toward tearing it down, symbolic cleansing, but maybe a small voice whispered that he could repurpose it into a legitimate cabin or rental, transform the negative into a new beginning. He swallowed, unsettled. Not a decision to rush. For now, he'd wait until the FBI gave the all-clear and see what Miss Farrah Kim advised about property usage. He strode back to his SUV, the wind rustling the tall grass. A hollow ache reminded him this land used to represent peace. Now it was overshadowed by Danielle's fiasco. If he rebuilt, maybe he could reclaim the joy. Maybe. That evening, Carson accepted April's standing invitation to dinner. She lived in a cozy townhouse across town. She greeted him with a warm hug, leading him inside where the smell of homemade lasagna wafted through the air. Over glasses of wine, they chatted about simpler days, college memories, mutual friends. For a while, Carson felt almost normal. Then reality seeped in as they finished the meal, and she asked gently, "So how are you really holding up with all this? The legal threats? The phone calls?" He sighed, swirling the wine in his glass. "It's overwhelming. One minute I'm furious. Next I feel lost. I never expected my marriage to end like this, especially not with a criminal betrayal. Then there's the fear that one of Rudy's associates might target me." April nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Well, I don't fully understand, but I empathize. Remember, you have support. And the FBI is on your side. You're not alone, Carson." He mustered a faint smile. "Thanks, April. I'm just grateful you're still here as a friend. I can't help but feel embarrassed or that people pity me." She reached out, covering his hand. "It's not pity. We respect what you did exposing a big ring, risking your safety. That's courage, not something to be ashamed of. Give yourself credit." He inhaled slowly, letting her reassurance sink in. Maybe she was right. Maybe he should remember the strength it took to stand up for truth, rather than wallow in the sense of betrayal. He glanced around her cozy living room, feeling that perhaps, with the support of real friends, he could survive this storm. The next day, he met Miss Farrah Kim at her law office. She had a serious expression, handing him a neatly organized folder. "We have the preliminary hearing in just over a week. The U.S. Attorney will call you as a witness. Danielle's defense might cross-examine you. We should prepare for any curveballs." Carson nodded, a flicker of anxiety creeping in. "Yeah, I'm ready to face them. But what if they start throwing out personal attacks or claiming I was complicit? Farah offered a reassuring nod. They can try. We'll emphasize the timeline. You discovered suspicious activity. You contacted law enforcement. You recorded calls. Plus, your statements to the FBI show you had no prior knowledge. The judge won't allow them to stray into unsubstantiated slander. He exhaled relief. Right. And they might bring up our marriage problems or try to paint me as controlling. She shrugged. That's typical in these defenses. Just answer calmly. Stick to facts. Don't react emotionally. The evidence is on your side. A wave of gratitude washed over him. I appreciate your confidence. She clasped her hands. One more point. Danielle's team may attempt a last-ditch request to supplant the hearing with a plea bargain. Don't be surprised if they approach you or the prosecution with a deal. My advice, let the prosecution decide. Don't let guilt or sentiment cloud your judgment. Carson nodded slowly, recalling Danielle's tearful phone calls. He wouldn't let them manipulate him again. Understood. With that, he left the office, stepping into the bright daylight. Each step toward the hearing felt like a step further from the life he once had, and a step closer to final justice. That afternoon, while at home sifting through more documents, his phone chimed with a number he didn't recognize. He answered hesitantly. A man's gruff voice. Carson Green? I'm Danielle's Uncle Roy. She reached out asking for bail money. She claims you're making her out to be the villain. Mind telling me your side? Carson almost laughed at the brazen approach. My side? She's indicted for drug trafficking. She cheated on me with her partner in crime. That's not me making her out as anything she did it. Roy coughed. I see. She says the ring forced her, that you threatened to expose her if she didn't comply. Carson's temper flared. That's a lie. She threatened me, not the other way around. Uncle Roy, if you want to help her, talk to her lawyer. But I'm done with her manipulations. A beat of silence. Then Roy sighed. Guess I can't be sure who's telling the truth. She's my niece, so I want to believe her. But from the news coverage, it looks bad. All right, thanks. He hung up, leaving Carson seething. Danielle was reaching out to every family member to spin fresh narratives. He paced the living room, frustration boiling. Let her talk all she wanted. The evidence was irrefutable. He just had to stay strong. That night, exhaustion overtook him early. He collapsed into bed, still fully dressed, drifting into a fitful sleep. A vivid dream assaulted him. He stood in the half-finished house's basement, locked in by a heavy steel door. Danielle was on the other side, face cold, telling him, "It's for your own good. This is how I protect us." He banged on the door, shouting for help, but the only sound was her mocking laughter. Then the walls seemed to close in, the overhead light flickering, painting everything in a yellowish, eerie hue. He jolted awake, heart hammering, sweat beading on his forehead. The clock read 3:14 a.m. He stared into the darkness, chest tight with leftover dread. For a long time, he couldn't still his racing mind. That dream was a reminder of how close he'd come to being truly victimized by the woman he once adored. When dawn broke, he felt hollowed out and more determined than ever. Determined to see the upcoming hearing through, no matter how painful it might be, and to reclaim peace from the rubble of this nightmare. Chapter 7. The morning of the preliminary hearing arrived. Carson dressed in a crisp button-down shirt, dark slacks, tie. He checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror, noticing faint dark circles under his eyes from restless nights. This was the day he'd faced Danielle in court, not as husband and wife, but as witness and defendant. He inhaled, trying to steady the flutter in his stomach. This wasn't the final trial, just a hearing to establish probable cause. But it still loomed large, especially with Danielle's unpredictability. He grabbed his briefcase, stuffed with copies of relevant documents Miss Farah Kim wanted him to have. Time to do this. Outside the Coldwater County Courthouse, the media presence was moderate. Cameras perched near the steps, capturing footage of people entering. Carson kept his head down, ignoring the few shouted questions from reporters. Miss Kim walked beside him, guiding him through the metal detectors. He saw Tessa near the security line, giving him a reassuring nod. Once inside, they headed to the second-floor hallway, where a handful of onlookers milled about. Agent Hawks greeted him quietly. "The U.S. Attorney is ready," Danielle's defense might question you vigorously, but we'll step in if they cross boundaries, Hawks murmured. Carson swallowed. Understood. Let's get it over with. They filed into a modest courtroom. On the left side, the prosecution table, the assistant U.S. attorney, a stern, middle-aged woman, plus Hawks and a couple staff. On the right, Danielle's defense attorney, a slick-looking man in a tailored suit, and Danielle herself, hair pulled back severely, wearing a plain gray jumpsuit with shackles on her ankles. She looked thinner, eyes rimmed with tension. Their gazes locked for a split second. She glared, then glanced away. Carson's chest tightened. The reality of seeing her like that, a woman he once adored, now bound by the justice system, was staggering. But he hardened his heart. She chose this path. The judge, a composed woman in black robes, took her seat. The hearing began with formalities. The U.S. attorney stood. Your Honor, we will show probable cause that Danielle Green conspired with Rudy Beltran to store and distribute illegal narcotics on property not her own, without the owner's consent. We have recorded evidence, eyewitness accounts, and material confiscated from the site. Danielle's attorney rose next, posture confident. Miss Green was coerced by Mr. Beltran and others. She lacked intent and merely followed orders under threat. Furthermore, we will show attempts by her husband, Carson Green, to manipulate her financially, forcing her into precarious deals. Carson bristled in his seat, Miss Kim placing a calming hand on his arm, the nerve of them twisting the story. He exhaled, telling himself to remain composed. The prosecutor called an FBI tech agent to testify about the contraband seized, detailing how it was found in hidden compartments. Next came Agent Justine Hawks, verifying how Carson had approached them with initial suspicions, how her team set up the sting. Hawks recounted the day of the arrest, confirming Danielle was present, giving orders to co-conspirators. Carson listened, tension coiling. Each piece hammered Danielle's involvement. She sat stoically, face pale but chin high. Now and then she whispered to her lawyer. Finally, the prosecutor said, "We'd like to call Carson Green to the stand, Your Honor." Carson stepped up, placed a hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Then he settled into the witness chair, heart thudding in his ears. The U.S. attorney approached. "Mr. Green, please state your relationship to the defendant." He cleared his throat. "I'm her husband, well. We're estranged. We've been married 8 years. She nodded. "When did you first suspect illegal activity on your property?" Carson recounted the tax notice, discovering the unpermitted structure, spotting men offloading suspicious crates. He explained how he confronted Danielle, who denied knowledge, then how he found receipts linking her to Beltran. The prosecutor guided him methodically, the hidden camera recordings, the final sting operation. With each answer, Danielle's expression hardened. The U.S. attorney then paused. "In your personal experience, did Miss Green display fear of harm from Rudy, or was she an active participant?" Carson inhaled. "She was active. In phone calls, she bragged about controlling me, ensuring I wouldn't interfere. She was not coerced. She threatened to lock me in the basement if I pried too much." A ripple moved through the courtroom. Danielle's face contorted, eyes flashing with anger. The prosecutor offered a final question. "So you believe Miss Green's involvement was intentional, correct?" "Yes," Carson said firmly. "Without a doubt." Danielle's attorney, a man named Warwick Friedman, strode forward with a smug tilt to his head. "Mr. Green, you claim you discovered all this by your own cunning. But isn't it true you installed hidden cameras in Danielle's workspace, violating her privacy?" Carson's jaw tightened. "I suspected major wrongdoing. It was my house, my property. I had reason to—" Friedman cut in. "Yes or no? Did you spy on your wife?" Carson shot him a glare. "Yes, because I suspected a crime, and I was right." Friedman smirked. "Yet you didn't first address your concerns calmly with Miss Green? Perhaps you were controlling, manipulating her to the point she felt forced to comply with Rudy's demands, hoping to shield you?" Carson's knuckles whitened on the armrest. "That's absurd. She told me nothing. She kept secrets, threatened me, cheated. I had no idea. Threatened you, or tried to keep you safe from Rudy's associates?" Friedman pressed. "You see, there's a difference in interpretation." Carson clenched his teeth. "She specifically planned to confine me if I got in her way." That's not protection. That's malice. Friedman pivoted. Is it possible you're blowing her words out of proportion due to jealousy about her alleged affair? Miss Kim rose. Objection, relevance. The judge nodded. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Friedman. Friedman's face darkened slightly. Mr. Green, you claim Miss Green orchestrated everything. Why did she not attempt to extort money from you or forcibly remove you from the property sooner if she was truly malicious? Carson exhaled slowly. She used the property as a stash site. She needed me out of the loop. She only turned hostile when I discovered her scheme. That's the reality. Friedman paused, lips thinning. No further questions, he said coolly, stepping back. Carson released a shaky breath. The confrontation ended. He glanced at Danielle, who refused to meet his eyes, jaw set. Good. Let her stew. After the prosecution rested, Friedman called Danielle to the stand in her own defense. She shuffled up, hands trembling slightly in cuffs. Then the bailiff removed the cuffs so she could be sworn in. Her lawyer guided her. Miss Green, can you explain how you became entangled with Rudy Beltran? She put on a mournful face. He approached me about real estate investments. He threatened to ruin me if I didn't cooperate. He said he'd hurt Carson. I had no choice. Friedman nodded sympathetically. So you only allowed contraband to be stored for fear of harm to Mr. Green? She feigned a tearful sniffle. Yes, I was scared. And Carson was so suspicious that it pushed me further. I had to keep him from interfering, or Rudy's men might have killed him. Carson felt a wave of disbelief. She was spinning it as heroically saving him. She was good at lying, but the evidence was stacked against her. Friedman turned. And the alleged affair, any truth to that? She shook her head vehemently. No, he manipulated me emotionally, but we had no romantic relationship. That's just Carson's jealous imagination. Carson fought the urge to shout that her phone calls literally had them calling each other babe. Miss Kim placed a hand on his arm again, silently telling him to remain calm. Friedman ended with a flourish. Your Honor, Miss Green was coerced. She had no real power in this arrangement. We ask the court to dismiss or reduce charges accordingly. The prosecution quickly offered a rebuttal, highlighting Danielle's recorded calls explicitly referencing her intimate talk with Rudy, her boasts about controlling Carson, her direct instructions to other conspirators. The tension in the courtroom thickened. Danielle's face paled as each clip was read into the record. Finally, the judge cleared her throat. I've heard sufficient evidence to determine probable cause. Miss Green will stand trial on the charges. Bail remains denied, given the flight risk and severity. Danielle slumped, tears forming. Friedman grimaced. The gavel rapped. The hearing concluded. Carson exhaled a shaky breath, relief and exhaustion swirling. He glanced at Danielle once more before officers escorted her away. Her eyes brimmed with hatred and desperation. For a moment, he felt an echo of sorrow for the woman he once loved, but it was overshadowed by the monstrous fact that she'd tried to drag him into hell. As the crowd dispersed, Tessa and Miss Kim approached. Tessa gave him a gentle pat on the back. You did great. You stayed calm, answered clearly. The judge believed you. Miss Kim nodded. Yes, that was a strong showing. They can't break you with their nonsense claims. Next step is the actual trial, but the government's case is robust. Carson nodded wearily. I'm just glad this part is over. Thanks for your help. Agent Hawks joined them briefly. The trial might be weeks or months away. But Danielle's not getting bail. She'll remain in custody. Good news for your safety. He let out a breath. That's good. I'm ready to move on, at least for now. They parted ways. Outside, the mild sun felt strangely comforting. Another milestone behind him, one step closer to final closure. Danielle was locked away, forced to face the consequences of her twisted actions. He walked past the reporters, ignoring their calls, determined not to let them hijack his story again. In the quiet of his car, he closed his eyes a moment, letting the wave of relief pass through him. The next chapter lay ahead: a divorce, a future free of her corruption. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of real hope that he could reclaim a normal life. Chapter 8. Days after the hearing, Carson found himself back at his grandmother's land, standing under a bright morning sky. The FBI tape was mostly gone, replaced by a single sign indicating the property was part of an ongoing case. He'd been given partial clearance to inspect or manage minor changes, though major demolition or construction needed official permission. He let out a breath, scanning the rough skeleton of the house. The painful memories threatened to resurface. Danielle's scheme, the criminals trooping in and out. But also a hint of satisfaction this place no longer served evil. The law had intervened. Danielle and Rudy were locked up. Carson strolled the perimeter, imagining a future where this land was redeemed, maybe turned into a weekend cabin that honored his grandmother's memory. The pungent smell of pine drifted in the breeze. He allowed a small smile. He'd endured heartbreak, but he was still standing. In her tasteful office, Miss Kim offered him a seat and a coffee. "How do you feel about proceeding with the formal divorce filing? We have enough grounds infidelity, criminal activity to expedite it." Carson nodded, adjusting the collar of his shirt. "Yes, I want it done. I don't see any point waiting. She's in custody, so can we do it in absentia?" Kim tapped her pen on a folder. "Yes, we'll serve her lawyer the divorce complaint. She can respond from jail. If she contests, we'll go to a hearing, but I doubt she has much bargaining power. Meanwhile, you can request all community property remain in your control, given her criminal usage." He exhaled relief. "Good. That's exactly what I want. The sooner I sever ties, the better." She offered a sympathetic smile. "Understood. Let's finalize the paperwork. One caution. Her side might try to drag out the process if they think they can exploit spousal benefits or manipulate you. Keep your resolve strong." Carson gave a grim chuckle. "My resolve is stronger than ever. Let them try." She nodded. "We'll be thorough. Also, a side note. If you choose to demolish that structure, notify me so we can ensure no legal entanglements. But that's up to you." He paused, picturing the building. "I haven't decided, but I'll keep you posted." With that, Miss Kim got to work drafting the official divorce complaint. Carson felt a weight lifting from his chest. It was painful to sever the last tie to Danielle, yet absolutely necessary. The following weekend, an article in the local paper took a less sympathetic tone toward Carson. A columnist speculated, did Carson Green ignore signs for years? Was he complicit or simply naive? It stung. As he read the piece, he realized not everyone considered him a hero. Some suspected a mild cover-up, or that he must have known more. Anger flared, but so did self-doubt. Could he have spotted Danielle's double life sooner? He phoned Tessa, frustration evident in his voice. "They're basically implying I had to be either an idiot or an accomplice." Tessa's calm tone soothed him. "You can't control what some columnist writes. The FBI's stance is clear. You alerted them. Stay the course. The truth stands." He sighed. "Yeah, it just rattles me. This entire ordeal turned my life inside out. Now I'm getting mudslinging from strangers." Tessa gently changed the topic, asking about his well-being. He appreciated her unwavering support. Setting aside the article, he resolved not to let sensational speculation rob him of peace. One evening, a thick envelope arrived without a return address. Carson, wary, opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Carson, you don't know me, but I knew Rudy and Danielle from a real estate angle. I parted ways before the bust. Thought you should know there's another hidden stash not found by the FBI on your property. Check the far southwestern corner near the old oak tree. Be cautious. An ex-friend." His pulse jumped. Another stash? The FBI had scoured the house thoroughly, but maybe not all the land. He rubbed his forehead. If there was indeed more contraband, that spelled potential danger. But also, he wanted it cleared off his land. Should he contact Agent Hawks? Yes. He dialed her number, reading the letter out loud. She told him to avoid searching alone. The FBI would set up a small sweep again. He agreed, relief mixing with anxiety. This criminal ring had roots deeper than he realized. 2 days later, Carson guided Agent Hawks and 2 other agents along the southwestern boundary of his acreage. They trudged through knee-high grass, scanning the ground with metal detectors and search gear. Sure enough, near an ancient oak tree, they discovered a buried cooler, half submerged in the soil. Opening it revealed plastic-wrapped bricks of a white powder cocaine or heroin, presumably. Carson's stomach twisted. Another fiasco averted. but it confirmed the ring's infiltration was more extensive. Hawks carefully bagged evidence. This is clearly linked to Rudy's operation. We'll add it to the charges. You did right to alert us. He nodded, grim. I just want it off my property. Every new find makes me sick. She gave a small, sympathetic smile. We're almost done. Once the trial is over, hopefully, we can declare your land free of any further contaminants. Hang in there. Watching them cart away the cooler, Carson felt a swirl of anger and relief. Another piece of Danielle's dark puzzle uprooted. Another reminder of how badly she'd abused his trust. Within a week, Carson received a letter postmarked from the county jail. The handwriting was unmistakably Danielle's. Carson, I see you're going for a divorce. Fine. Just know I have plenty of evidence that you weren't as clueless as you pretend. If you keep trying to ruin me, I'll release everything. Maybe your precious Tessa Vaughn would be interested in how you tapped my phone. Maybe the media would love a new angle. Your call, Danielle. His hands shook with rage. She was flailing, threatening blackmail again. But what evidence could she have? The phone taps were done on his own devices in his own house, so it was arguably legal. Still, the letter triggered a wave of anxiety and fury. He marched to his desk, scanning the note for any coded references. Then he called Miss Kim, reading it out loud. She snorted. Ridiculous bluff. She's just trying to intimidate you. We can report this harassment to the prosecutor. Keep the letter as evidence of her continued threats. Carson nodded. Another reeking attempt at manipulation. He resolved not to let her get under his skin. She'd already lost the moral high ground. This letter only further damned her cause. That Saturday, Carson accepted another dinner invite from April. Over a simple chicken stir-fry, conversation took a personal turn. He confessed how the stress was wearing him down. Nightmares, second-guessing, guilt about missing warning signs. April listened intently. Carson, you can't blame yourself. Some people are experts at hiding their darker side. Danielle obviously excelled at deception. He stared at his plate. I just feel so stupid. She was my wife. How did I miss the red flags? The secret phone calls, the unexplained money. I overlooked them, chalked it up to her being busy at work. April's gaze was gentle. Love blinds us sometimes, and she was cunning. Don't beat yourself up. At least you stopped her before it got even worse. Carson's chest felt tight. Thanks, April. It's just lonely. The house is silent, the bed's empty. Even if she was a monster, I was used to having someone there. April reached across the table, giving his hand a comforting squeeze. I understand. Maybe it's time to find new routines, new hobbies, something that's yours alone to fill that emptiness. He mustered a small smile. Yeah, you're right. I need to move forward, not let her shadow define me. She offered a supportive nod. In her caring eyes, he saw genuine friendship, maybe the seeds of something more, though he wasn't ready to explore that. For now, it was enough to have a confidant who truly listened. One afternoon, Miss Kim messaged him that the FBI was basically done with the structure. If he wanted to demolish or repurpose it, he was free. Carson visited the property again, alone this time, walking slowly through the half-finished rooms. He ran a palm over the bare studs, imagining the monstrous plot that had played out here. But also, he pictured the possibility of building a real cabin, a new design that aligned with the land's peaceful vibe. Could he transform this skeleton from a symbol of betrayal into a symbol of rebirth? He stood in what might become a living room, sunlight streaming through the open window frames. Maybe I can do it, he whispered to himself. Tear out all the rotten secrecy, keep the good bones, build something honest. The idea stirred a sense of agency. He'd need to hire a legitimate contractor, ensure compliance with county codes. But how cathartic to reclaim the place Danielle had so twisted. He resolved to consult Miss Kim about potential legal or emotional obstacles, then maybe move forward. Shortly thereafter, Tessa texted him, Got some free time? Let's grab coffee. You can update me on the property. He agreed, meeting her at a cozy cafe near the police station. Over steaming mugs, they talked about the newly discovered stash, the letter from Danielle, the possibility of renovating rather than demolishing. Tessa listened, nodding. Renovating could be a symbolic fresh start. I think it's healthy, as long as it doesn't keep reminding you of her crimes. He shrugged lightly. At first, I wanted to demolish everything. But now, I feel like if I create something good out of it, it might be my triumph over her betrayal. Tessa's eyes lit with understanding. That's a strong perspective. And hey, you could eventually rent it out or just keep it as your getaway. Either way, it's your choice, untainted by Danielle. They fell into a thoughtful silence, sipping coffee. Then Tessa asked gently, "And personally, are you coping better?" He met her gaze, finding warmth there. "I still have nightmares occasionally, still get angry. But the hearing gave me closure that justice is happening. I'm focusing on the future, the property, my job, and leaning on good friends." He paused, a small grin. "Like you." She smiled, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "I'm glad to be that friend. You deserve happiness, Carson. After all you've been through, don't forget you're allowed to find joy again." A wave of gratitude flooded him. Maybe in her presence he felt a flicker of something more than friendship, but he wasn't sure if that was wise to pursue. For now, friendship sufficed, a warm anchor in a sea of upheaval. That evening, Carson returned home with renewed determination. He carefully removed the last few items of Danielle's from the closet, some shoes, a few personal knickknacks. He boxed them up, setting them in the garage. Miss Kim advised that was normal procedure for divorcing spouses. He felt an odd relief clearing the space. He paced around the living room, phone in hand. He dialed a reputable contractor, recommended by Miss Kim, leaving a voicemail about potential remodeling. He ended the call with a sense of final purpose. The last weeks had been a whirlwind of revelations, heartbreak, and confrontation. But now, as he looked around the quiet house, he sensed a different kind of silence, one filled with possibility, not dread. Yes, Danielle's trial would eventually come, but the preliminary hearing had validated the charges. She'd face the consequences for her betrayal. Meanwhile, Carson had the chance to rebuild, not just physically on the property, but emotionally in his heart. The specter of her manipulation still flickered, but day by day it lost power over him. He breathed in deeply, letting the tension flow out. He was free to shape his tomorrow, unencumbered by her twisted shadow. And that knowledge alone felt like victory. Chapter 9. A week after Part 2's events, Carson was jolted awake by the motion detection alert on his phone. His security cameras outside the house had sensed movement at 2:35 a.m. heart pounding. He grabbed his phone, pulling up the live feed. A dark figure lurked near the edge of his driveway, partially hidden by shrubs. After a moment, the figure retreated into the shadows and vanished. Carson sat upright, adrenaline spiking. "Oh God, another creep from Rudy's ring," he whispered. He carefully walked to the window, scanning the yard. Nothing but the hush of suburban night. Nonetheless, the knowledge that someone had come this close unsettled him deeply. He texted Tessa. "Carson, 2:40 a.m. Motion sensor caught a prowler again. Possibly the same crowd who threatened me. Should I call it in? Within minutes, Tessa replied, "Tessa, 2:41 a.m. Call dispatch. I'll check if a patrol can swing by. Stay indoors. Don't confront them alone." He complied, phoning the non-emergency line. By the time an officer arrived, the prowler was gone, leaving only footprints in the damp soil near the shrubs. The officer's flashlight beam revealed partial footprints, but nothing conclusive. Carson locked the doors, anxiety gnawing at him. Had Rudy's circle escalated intimidation tactics? Or was it some random trespasser? Memories of Theo Masterson's phone call, warning "be careful," drifted back. Sleep felt impossible now. He quietly made coffee, mentally rechecking his home security. A new wave of tension weighed him down. Would these threats never end? The next morning, Carson visited the FBI field office. Agent Justine Hawks greeted him in a small conference room, wearing a concerned expression. He described the midnight prowler, his growing worry about possible retaliation. Hawks took notes, nodding. "We'll see if we can connect that with any known associates of Rudy. Some of these folks hold grudges, especially if they blame you for the bust. We can coordinate with local PD to increase patrols near your house." Carson sighed, rubbing tired eyes. "Thanks. It's just exhausting. I hoped once Danielle was arrested, it'd calm down, but it's like some criminals still want revenge." Hawks offered a reassuring smile. "You did a big public service. We'll do everything possible to protect you. In the meantime, keep your cameras rolling, stay vigilant. We're working on taking down the entire network. He mustered a nod. I appreciate that. Anything new on Danielle's side? She flipped through a file. Her lawyers filed a motion to suppress certain recordings, claiming spousal privacy, but the judge is likely to reject that, given the criminal conspiracy exception. The trial's scheduled in 2 months. 2 months. An eternity or a heartbeat. Carson left the FBI office with mixed relief and apprehension. The final trial might secure justice, but in the meantime, he had to watch his back. Despite the unsettled night, Carson was determined to move forward with his plan to renovate the half-finished house on his grandmother's land. He contacted a recommended contractor, Luis Martinez, who specialized in rural cabin restorations. They arranged to meet on-site that afternoon. Carson arrived early, stepping onto the porch with a twinge of nerves. Once the sight of criminals scurrying about, now it might see legitimate construction. Soon, a dusty pickup pulled up, and out stepped a friendly-looking man in work boots and a baseball cap. "Carson Green?" Luis extended a calloused hand. "Heard you got a unique job for me." Carson shook his hand. "Yep, that's me. Fair warning. This structure has some dark history, but I want to repurpose it into something good." Luis took a slow tour inside, shining a flashlight on the studs, testing the flooring. He frowned at certain corners, then scribbled notes on a pad. After about an hour, they emerged, dust clinging to their clothes. "So, Mr. Green, it's doable," Luis said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Foundation's stable enough. We'd need to tear out the basement door, reinforce some framing. The roof's partially done but might need relaying. You basically want a comfortable cabin or small home, yeah?" Carson nodded. "Exactly. Cozy, simple, maybe 1 bedroom, a living space, a small kitchen, enough to enjoy weekends or rent out eventually." Luis smiled. "All right, I can draw up estimates. We'll need electrical, plumbing, insulation, a full finish. This is months of work, but we can do it." Carson felt a spark of hope. "Sounds great. Email me the cost estimate. I appreciate your time." They shook hands again. As Luis drove off, Carson stood on the porch in the fading afternoon sun, imagining the completed interior. For the first time in ages, he felt a flicker of excitement about the future. Maybe he could truly reclaim this land's dignity. 2 days later, Carson was raking leaves in his front yard when a silver sedan pulled up. A dignified older woman stepped out, wearing a navy blazer and pearls. He recognized her faintly from a wedding photo Danielle's mother, Martha. Curbing his surprise, he paused his raking. Hi, Mrs. Green?" He realized that yes, Danielle's mother shared the same last name. Though he'd met her only once or twice at family gatherings, Danielle always claimed they were estranged. Martha gave a polite nod. "Carson, I'm sorry to show up unannounced. I needed to speak with you regarding Danielle's situation." He set the rake aside, tension creeping in. "Sure, we can talk on the porch?" She followed him up to the porch chairs. He offered her a seat, noticing she clutched her purse tightly. After a moment of awkward silence, she began in a hushed tone. "I realized Danielle did terrible things. I only found out the full extent recently. I wanted you to know that her father and I never condoned any of this. We're not here to defend her crimes." Carson exhaled a slow breath. "I appreciate that. Honestly, I didn't expect family to appear. She's threatened me from jail, tried to blame me. She's told different stories to different relatives." Martha grimaced. "Yes, I've heard her accusations. My gut says she's lying to save her own skin. She was always rebellious, but I never imagined this level of deceit." He studied her face, seeing genuine sorrow. "I'm sorry. It must be devastating to learn your daughter is involved in criminal behavior. But what are you hoping from me?" She let out a shaky sigh. "I just wanted to see if there's any chance of a reduced sentence if she confessed. She mentioned you hold most of the evidence. She's desperate. Honestly, Carson, she's my child, but I can't force you to show mercy. I understand you have every right to testify fully." A pang of empathy stirred in him. Danielle's mother was caught between maternal love and the harsh truth. Still, his resolve remained. "Mrs. Green, I'm not out for blood, but what Danielle did, she has to face the consequences. It's too far gone for me to retract the evidence. The FBI has it. She can't rely on me to bail her out." Martha's eyes brimmed with tears. She nodded. "I see. I just had to ask. Danielle never told us anything real. I wish she had turned to us before descending into this. Please know we don't blame you. Carson felt a lump in his throat. Thank you. I wish things were different too, but here we are. They spoke quietly a bit longer, Martha eventually leaving with a solemn expression. As her sedan disappeared down the street, Carson closed his eyes, heaviness pressing on his chest. Even in her downfall, Danielle's actions caused ripples of pain in unsuspecting loved ones. A week later, Carson was heading out for groceries when he noticed his car tilted oddly in the driveway. Cursing under his breath, he crouched down. 2 tires were punctured, big gashes in the sidewalls. He stood, fists clenched, scanning the street for any sign of a vandal. No note, no blatant message. But the pattern was clear. Someone was targeting him. The prowler, now this. The rage in his gut roared. He immediately phoned Tessa. Tessa, my car tires got slashed. Probably the same group messing with me. I can't even drive now. She sounded exasperated. Stay put. I'll send a patrol and come check it personally. Don't approach anyone alone. Within the hour, a police cruiser parked by his house. Tessa stepped out with a uniformed officer, examining the damage. They took photos, looked for footprints, found none distinct. Tessa patted Carson's shoulder, seeing his frustration. We'll do a neighborhood canvass, see if any doorbell cams caught the culprit. We'll also escalate your address on patrol watch. Carson's voice trembled with anger. I'm sick of this. It's not enough they threatened me, now they're damaging property. How long does this go on? Tessa gave a sympathetic sigh. I wish I had a timeline. We'll push the DA to keep Rudy behind bars, and hopefully the ring members lose interest. But they might test you. Please keep your security tight. He nodded, tension coiled in his chest. Another reminder that Danielle's choices continued to haunt him. He vowed not to back down, though. They wouldn't scare him into silence or concessions. That evening, he texted April about the vandalism. She invited him over, concern evident in her messages. Over a comforting cup of chamomile tea in her living room, he vented about the relentless harassment. April listened, eyes full of empathy. Have you thought about stepping away for a bit? Like a short trip to clear your mind? Let the local PD handle watch on your house. He hesitated. Part of me wants to stand my ground, but maybe a weekend away wouldn't hurt. I can't fix the property or my tires while in a constant state of dread. She nodded. Exactly. Even if just a couple days, you deserve a break. Go up to the mountains or something. Disconnect. Remind yourself there's life beyond this chaos. Carson mulled it over. The idea is tempting. I might do that. But I'll talk to Tessa. See if they'll keep an eye on my place. Don't want to come back to a ransacked home. April gave a warm smile. I'll check on it too if you like. You know me, I'll chase off trouble with a broom if needed. She winked. Seriously, though, consider it. He mustered a grateful grin. Thanks. Maybe I will. A little retreat to a quiet spot. Clear my head. I'll let you know. A sense of relief flickered. Perhaps a short getaway was precisely the mental reset he needed. The following day, Carson met Tessa at a local deli for lunch, discussing the slashed tires and the possibility of a trip. She seemed hesitant at first, but eventually relented. All right, Tessa said, stirring her iced tea. We can request extra patrol. I might swing by your house off shift if that helps. But let me know exactly where you're going, so if something big happens, I can contact you. Keep your phone on, of course. Carson relaxed. That's fair. I'm not planning anything long, just a remote cabin for a weekend. I've had enough drama. She reached across the small table, giving his hand a brief, comforting squeeze. Be safe. And if you want company, I mean, if you'd rather not go alone. Her words drifted, and a light flush tinted her cheeks. Carson's heart quickened. Was she offering to join him? He weighed the idea. Part of him yearned for normalcy, maybe even a spark of companionship. But the notion of a romantic getaway with Tessa felt sudden. He still reeled from Danielle's betrayal. He cleared his throat. I appreciate that, Tessa, truly. But I might need some solitude this time. Maybe we can plan something less intense later, once everything calms down. She gave a quick nod, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Of course, no pressure. I get it. He smiled softly, grateful for her understanding. Perhaps in the future they'd explore something deeper. For now, he had to sort out his own tangled emotions. The following weekend, Carson hopped into a rental SUV while his slashed tires were replaced and drove a few hours to a mountain lodge area. He'd reserved a small cabin near a lake quiet, with minimal cell coverage, just what he needed to decompress. The crisp mountain air greeted him, pine trees towering overhead, the scent of earth and forest filling his lungs. A gentle breeze whispered through the branches. After checking in at the lodge's front desk, he strolled to the rustic cabin, dropping his duffel bag. A simple wooden porch overlooked a shimmering lake in the distance. For the first time in months, he felt a semblance of peace. No looming half-built structure reeking of betrayal, no immediate threats of slashed tires, just nature's calm. That night, he lit a small fire in the cabin's stone fireplace, sipping hot cocoa, letting the crackle of flames soothe him. He found his mind drifting to Tessa's gentle smile, April's unwavering friendship, the possibility of a renewed life post-divorce. The swirl of bitterness about Danielle felt slightly distant here, overshadowed by simpler, calmer senses. He vowed to savor these days, recharging for the final battles ahead. Danielle's trial and the official divorce hearing. The second day at the cabin, Carson took a hike along a forest trail, listening to birdsong and the distant rush of a waterfall. He replayed the last year in his mind, his and Danielle's marriage unraveling, the horrifying discovery of her criminal ties, the heartbreak, but also the resilience he showed, reaching out to law enforcement, standing firm in court. A surprising sense of pride welled up. He realized that for all the pain, he had proven his courage, resourcefulness, and moral backbone. He refused to let Danielle's manipulations break him. That flicker of self-respect warmed his chest. Maybe he wasn't perfect. He did miss signs of her deceit, but he overcame it once he saw the truth. He paused at a scenic overlook, gazing at the vast pine valley below. "I deserve a better future," he murmured, "and I can build it, step by step." On the third morning, he packed up, feeling lighter. The short retreat had cleared his mind. He drove back down winding roads to the main highway, phone regaining service. Messages poured in, one from Miss Kim about divorce updates, one from the FBI scheduling a pre-trial interview, and a text from Tessa. "Tessa, all quiet at your place? Tired of peace yet? Let me know when you're back." He smiled, shooting a quick reply. "Carson, just wrapped up, feeling recharged. Thanks for watching The Fort." Yes, he was ready to face whatever came next. Finalizing the divorce, preparing for the criminal trial, and dealing with any lingering threats from Rudy's gang. The mountain had restored his spirit. He had hope again. Chapter 10. Carson pulled into his driveway, relieved to see no new vandalism. Tessa had indeed arranged extra patrols, and a neighbor's doorbell camera had apparently scared off further mischief. He swiftly unlocked the house, scanning each room. Everything seemed in place. A calm hush, but no sense of dread. He double-checked his security system, upgrading the firmware on his cameras, a perk of being a cybersecurity specialist, to ensure even better detection. Then, with a confident nod, he settled on the couch, savoring the quiet. The mountain trip had done wonders. The next morning, Luis Martinez arrived at Carson's house with a folder of blueprints and an itemized cost sheet. Carson studied them carefully over coffee at the dining table. Luis explained, "We'll tear out the old basement door, install a standard exterior door. The interior framing is about 70% complete. We'll handle new wiring, a small septic system if needed, or connect to existing lines if possible. I included potential final finishes, wood paneling, a fireplace, etc." Carson nodded, excitement stirring. "That all looks good. The cost is within the range I anticipated. Let's do it. And I'd love a small deck with a view if possible." Luis grinned. "Absolutely. That's an easy addition. We'll keep you updated on progress. We might face supply delays, but I'll do my best to keep it smooth." They shook hands, signing the official contract. A sense of triumph warmed Carson's heart. He was truly reclaiming that place from Danielle's criminal taint. Step one of forging a new legacy. That afternoon, Carson's phone buzzed, April's name on the screen. He answered cheerily, "Hey, what's up?" Her tone was laced with curiosity. "Carson, remember you asked me ages ago to see if Danielle had any hidden business ties? Well, I was rechecking some older data. There's a mention of a certain Raleigh escrow corp that might be linked to Danielle's mother. Did her mother mention anything about an escrow company? Carson blinked. No, not specifically. Her mother did show up recently, but never said anything about that. Why? April explained. Because I found an obscure record. A deposit from Raleigh escrow to Danielle's account last year, about the time she started big expansions. Possibly the mother is involved or unknowingly funded something. Might be nothing, or might be more skeletons. Carson frowned. That's odd. Miss Green seemed sincere in her regret. Maybe she financed Danielle without realizing it was dirty money. Could also be part of the ring. Should I alert the FBI? April hesitated. It's your call. But it's another puzzle piece. Just wanted you to know. He mulled it over. Martha Green seemed genuine, but the Raleigh escrow link was suspicious. He decided to log it for reference. Thanks, April. Keep me posted. Another sign that Danielle's web of deceit extended further than expected. Could her mother be deeper in this than she let on? Carson drove out to the property a few days later to see Luis's initial demolition work. The air buzzed with the sound of a small generator, 2 workers already dismantling warped beams in the basement. Piles of debris lay outside. Luis greeted him with a grin. Hey, man, we're making progress. Figured we'd gut the basement walls first to remove any questionable hidden compartments. Then we'll frame it properly. Carson peered into the basement, relieved to see the door replaced with standard framing. The once a sinister space was now stripped to bare cinder blocks. A wave of closure washed over him, remembering how Danielle had planned to trap him down there. He turned to Luis. Thanks. This is symbolic. Every chunk of old wood out the door feels like reclaiming my life. Luis clapped him on the shoulder. Happy to help. Should be an uplifting project. We'll keep pushing. Let's aim to start framing the upper level next week. Carson smiled, breathing in the fresh air. Bit by bit, the House of Horrors was transforming into something new, a reflection of his own transformation, perhaps. That afternoon, Carson was wrapping up on site when a sleek SUV pulled up, dust swirling. To his surprise, Martha Green stepped out again, face drawn. She glanced at the construction activity with thinly veiled anxiety. Carson, she said carefully, approaching him near the porch. I heard you're renovating the building. You really intend to keep it? He shrugged. Why not? It's my property. I'm turning it into something good. She clasped her hands. But this place was the epicenter of your pain. Are you sure it won't just bring back memories of Danielle's betrayal? He gave a half-smile. Maybe at first, but I'd rather reclaim it than let it remain an ugly monument to her crimes. She pursed her lips. I suppose that makes sense. Listen, I came here because I uncovered some old financial documents of Danielle's father, my late husband, who passed years ago. I suspect Danielle used a portion of an inheritance or escrow from me without my knowledge. She might have laundered it for Rudy. It implicates me indirectly. Carson's mind spun. So that's the Raleigh Escrow Corp? April found traces of it. Martha nodded, face pained. Yes, that's the name. I never realized Danielle was funneling money through an old family escrow. I feel partly responsible for enabling her. If the FBI finds out, they might question me too. A pang of sympathy flickered in Carson. The FBI is thorough. If you're honest about being in the dark, they'll likely see you as a victim. But yes, you should prepare to answer questions. She swallowed hard. I just wanted to warn you, in case more scandal surfaces about Danielle's mother. I didn't want you to think I lied to you. He exhaled, tension creeping in. I understand, thanks for telling me. I'll pass any relevant details to the FBI. Honesty is best right now. She eyed the half-gutted structure. I wish Danielle had used that money for something decent, not this criminal mess. I'm truly sorry. He forced a small nod, empathy warring with bitterness. Me too. But we can't rewrite history. We can only face the consequences. She left soon after, leaving Carson with yet another layer of Danielle's twisted finances. The building hissed with the sound of a power drill from inside, as if exorcising old demons. Given the Prowler incident and slashed tires, Tessa insisted on occasionally riding with Carson to the property, ensuring safety. One bright morning, they took her police cruiser out together. The air between them carried a warmth built on trust and a flicker of something deeper. Carson pointed out roads, chatted about the progress. Tessa asked about the potential deck overlooking the southern view. He found himself sharing little details of the interior design he imagined. Her eyes sparkled. That'll be lovely. Maybe once it's done, you can host a small gathering or barbecue. Celebrate a new chapter. He smiled, glancing at her in the driver's seat. I'd like that. And you'd be invited, of course. She returned a gentle smile. Count me in. I can't wait to see it finished. At the property, Tessa strolled around, mentally assessing security angles. She told him the police still had no leads on the tire slasher. Probably an anonymous crony. Could be they've backed off or they're biding time. Carson frowned. I hope it's the former. I'm so ready for normalcy, Tessa. She stepped closer, laying a comforting hand on his arm. You'll get there. Just hang on a bit longer. They locked eyes for a moment, an unspoken tension thrumming. Then she withdrew her hand with a soft cough, resuming her professional demeanor. Still, Carson felt that spark linger. Back at Miss Farrah Kim's office, Carson learned Danielle's legal team tried a new tactic. They claimed the marriage should remain until after her trial, citing spousal privilege, and that any divorce now was retaliatory. Kim rolled her eyes, explaining, "They're stalling. If they keep you married, they might attempt to muzzle your testimony or exploit spousal rights." Carson's exasperation flared. But the court already recognized the conspiracy exception, right? She can't muzzle me. I want out of this marriage ASAP. Kim nodded firmly. Yes, the criminal court recognized that. This is a separate civil maneuver. We'll file a motion to override. It's typical defensive strategy, but it won't hold. A judge will see it's a delay tactic. Carson slumped in the chair, arms folded. Every time I think we're close to finalizing, Danielle tries something else. She's behind bars, yet she's still messing with me. Kim gave a sympathetic grin. She's desperate, but the law is on our side. We'll push for a hearing in a few weeks. Meanwhile, keep your cool. They can't keep you chained in a marriage you don't want. He exhaled, frustration simmering. This process felt endless, but he appreciated Kim's unwavering competence. All right, let's do it. She nodded, tapping notes into her tablet. Trust me, we'll get you free soon. Days later, Agent Justine Hawks called Carson in for a briefing. He arrived at the FBI field office, stepping into the same small conference room as before. Hawks wore a measured expression, a folder in hand. Carson, I'll be direct. Danielle's lawyer approached the U.S. attorney about a potential plea deal. She's apparently willing to testify against higher-ups in Rudy's network if she gets a reduced sentence. His breath caught. Reduced sentence? After everything, that's galling. Do the feds want her cooperation? Hawks shrugged. We always want bigger fish. If she can truly deliver top-tier traffickers, they might knock years off her sentence. It's typical, but we're not sure she has real intel or is bluffing. The U.S. attorney is assessing credibility. Carson's jaw tensed. So she might walk away with less time because she's a cunning liar? Potentially. Federal justice can be pragmatic. Doesn't mean she'll go scot-free, but maybe less harsh than the maximum. We wanted you to know. They might ask for your stance, though the final call is the prosecutor's. He sank into a chair, anger swirling. I can't stop them from making deals, but it's infuriating. She did so much harm. Hawks nodded sympathetically. I get it. For now, it's just negotiations. Nothing finalized. The trial date is still set if the plea falls through. He raked a hand through his hair. Well, keep me posted. If they want my statement, I'll give it. She might attempt to spin more lies to sweeten her so-called intel. Hawks pressed her lips thin. We're aware. We'll see if she actually has names of higher syndicate members. If so, it might expedite the ring's takedown. But yeah, I understand your frustration. Carson left, stomach roiling. The idea of Danielle wiggling into a lighter sentence stung, but the justice system had its methods. He steeled himself to keep going. Even if she got less time, he'd be free of her eventually. On a crisp Saturday morning, Carson drove out to the property for an official renovation check. Luis was waiting, grinning from ear to ear. We got the subflooring in place for the first level. You can walk around without risking a fall. Carson hopped out of the SUV, marveling at the changes. The basement was tidier, new beams installed, walls partially insulated. On the main level, the porch had new railing. Sunlight spilled through the open doorframe onto sturdy floorboards. He stepped carefully, feeling pride well up at each sign of progress. Luis led him upstairs, a simple loft space, where framing for a small bedroom and half-bath was underway. "We're on schedule so far," Luis said, voice echoing in the unfinished space. "Might even get the roof fully done by next week if weather cooperates." Carson nodded, grin unstoppable. "It already feels like a real home. I can't thank you enough for the care you're putting into it." Luis chuckled. "I sense it's more than just a building to you, right?" Carson exhaled, gaze drifting to the skeleton walls. "Yes, it's my second chance. This land used to be my grandmother's. Then it got corrupted by my wife's crimes. Now we're reclaiming it." Luis patted his back. "We'll make it beautiful. Wait until you see the deck. You'll be sipping coffee, watching the sunrise." Carson imagined that moment, peace settling in. "I can't wait." That evening, Tessa invited Carson to a lauky dinner at a small Italian restaurant off-duty, no uniform. Over wine and pasta, they chatted about life beyond the case. She asked about his cybersecurity projects. He asked about her detective ambitions. They laughed over childhood memories, referencing the old days in the same high school. Midway through the meal, conversation paused. Their eyes locked, a gentle warmth blossoming. Tessa took a breath, then spoke softly. "Carson, we've been dancing around this for a while. I care about you more than just a friend, but I don't want to push if you're not ready." His heart thudded. Part of him felt a rush of emotion, longing for genuine affection after the heartbreak. Another part was cautious. Danielle's betrayal left scars. But looking at Tessa, seeing her earnest, caring expression, he realized how much trust and comfort she'd brought him. He reached across the table, lightly touching her hand. "I do feel something for you, too. I won't lie. I'm still healing, so I might be slow. But if you're willing to be patient, I'd love to see where this goes." A radiant smile touched her lips. "We can take it slow, no pressure. I just wanted you to know I'm here, not just as a cop or friend, but someone who wants you to be happy." Relief and a gentle warmth spread through him. "I appreciate that more than I can say." They finished dinner in that buoyant glow, a quiet sense of promise unfolding. Outside, under the streetlights, they shared a soft, lingering hug. Carson felt a glimmer of hope for real love, a stark contrast to the shadows Danielle cast. One step at a time, he told himself. One step at a time. Chapter 11. 2 weeks later, Miss Kim phoned Carson with urgent news. "Carson, the prosecution discovered Rudy's side plans to call a surprise witness, someone from Danielle's past, who might claim she was coerced or manipulated. They're hoping to undermine your testimony by painting you as controlling." Carson's stomach twisted. "Another attempt at that angle, huh? Who is it?" "An ex-boyfriend from before you, apparently. They claim he'll testify that Danielle has a history of hooking up with controlling men or some nonsense. The prosecution thinks it's a weak move, but you should be ready for personal smears." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "This is insane. They'll dig up anything to spin a narrative that I forced her, but I've done nothing but discover her crimes." Kim's tone was reassuring. "Exactly. Don't worry. We can handle it. The FBI's evidence overshadowing any character claims is solid. Just wanted to warn you." He thanked her, though tension gnawed at his gut. Danielle wouldn't stop trying to shift blame until the gavel dropped for good. Agent Hawks summoned Carson to a final pre-trial meeting, along with Tessa, representing local PD, and the assistant U.S. attorney. They convened in a dimly lit conference room at the U.S. attorney's office. Stacks of files lined a broad oak table. The AUSA, Miss Porter, began with a crisp tone. "Trial is set for next week. Danielle's attempt at a plea deal fell through. She apparently couldn't deliver credible info on bigger fish. So we're going to court. Mr. Green, are you prepared for more cross-examination?" He nodded firmly. "Yes, they can't intimidate me. I'll stick to the facts." Porter slid a document forward. "We suspect they'll use emotional pleas, painting Danielle as a misguided woman who fell in with bad criminals. We'll rely on your recorded evidence, witness statements from FBI agents, and her digital trail. You remain our star civilian witness foundation of the case." Carson swallowed, nerves sparking. "I won't let you down." Hawks added, "There's also the matter of new threats. We'll have security at the courthouse. We encourage you not to roam alone, especially after hours." Tessa spoke up, tone protective. "I'll keep an eye on him, too." She flashed Carson a subtle, supportive look. Porter nodded. "Good. We can't be too careful. Let's finalize your direct testimony outline." For the next hour, they ran through potential lines of questioning. Carson answered calmly, each repetition solidifying his resolve. Danielle's final gambit was about to unfold. He wouldn't falter. The same afternoon, Miss Kim informed Carson that the judge had scheduled a hearing to address Danielle's stalling tactics on the divorce. It would occur a week after the criminal trial concluded, presumably to let the dust settle from the trial. If all went well, a final decree might be signed soon after. Carson's relief was palpable. He hoped that by next month, both the criminal outcome and his marital ties to Danielle would be resolved, freeing him entirely. Miss Kim advised him to remain calm if Danielle showed up in handcuffs or tried dramatics. Carson almost laughed he wouldn't put anything past her. One more milestone, he told himself. Just hang on through the trial. A crisp dawn broke over the city as Carson dressed in a neat blazer, tie, and slacks. He gazed in the mirror, heart pounding with anticipation. This was it. The day he faced Danielle in open court, the day her fate would be largely sealed. He inhaled deeply to steady his nerves. He drove carefully to the courthouse, Tessa following in her cruiser, ensuring no suspicious vehicles trailed him. The tension in the air felt electric. Media vans lurked outside, capturing images of a notorious local drug conspiracy trial. Carson avoided them, hurrying inside with Miss Kim. In the hallway, reporters shouted questions. "Carson, did you force your wife to commit crimes? Are you the real mastermind?" He ignored them, Miss Kim placing a firm hand on his shoulder to guide him forward. Inside, the courtroom was bigger than the previous hearing space, with a solemn hush. The U.S. Attorney's team sat at one table, Danielle and her defense counsel at another. Rudy was tried separately, so Danielle's seat was alone, flanked by two attorneys. She wore a conservative suit instead of jail jumpsuit, clearly an attempt to appear sympathetic. Carson's eyes flicked over her once familiar features. She looked thinner, her hair pinned tightly, her expression sober and tense. He took his place near Miss Kim, exhaling shakily. Let the final showdown begin. The judge, the Honorable Irene Hampton, commenced the trial. The prosecution's opening statement was methodical, recounting Danielle's direct role in storing narcotics, manipulating her husband, forging documents, and cheating financially. When Danielle's attorney rose, he painted her as a naive spouse entangled with ruthless criminals, forced to keep Mr. Green pacified to protect him from Rudy's threats. A small gasp rippled through the gallery when he alleged Carson had once threatened to leave Danielle destitute if she didn't comply with certain shady deals. Carson's jaw clenched. That was pure fabrication. But the real shock came when the defense implied Danielle had suffered domestic emotional pressure, citing an old text snippet out of context. Miss Kim whispered to Carson that they'd refute it soon enough. Carson's heart pounded. This was going to be ugly. The judge gave a mild admonition to the defense about unsubstantiated claims, and they moved on. The tension soared. The prosecution introduced the recorded phone calls. Carson's hidden cameras had captured Danielle's voice calmly boasting about keeping Carson clueless and referencing the basement trap. The jury leaned forward, clearly impacted by the damning content. Over the speakers, Danielle's voice echoed, "Carson won't suspect a thing if I keep him convinced it's a small construction project." The menacing tone in her words was unmistakable. Another snippet. "Lock him in the basement if he tries to ruin this." Carson watched Danielle's face tighten, eyes darting. She sipped water nervously. The jury's eyes flicked from the screen to her. Miss Porter, the AUSA, pressed further, calling an FBI tech who verified the authenticity of these recordings. The defense fidgeted, struggling to object. It felt surreal for Carson, hearing Danielle's hateful words blasted publicly. Pain twisted in his gut, but also a grim satisfaction her lies laid bare for the world. Soon, Miss Porter called Carson to the stand. He repeated the oath, mind racing. The bright lights felt oppressive, but he steadied himself. Porter gently guided him through the timeline, discovering the unpermitted structure, the suspicious receipts, confronting Danielle, contacting the FBI. He spoke clearly, unwavering, detailing how she threatened him if he exposed her. The jury listened intently. Danielle stared at him with icy resentment. He refused to waver under that glare. Miss Porter ended, "Thank you, Mr. Green. No further questions." Then came the defense attorney, Friedman. He bombarded Carson with insinuations. Friedman: "Isn't it true you were suspicious of your wife from the start? Perhaps you resented her success and tried to sabotage her?" Carson calmly responded, "No, I was proud of her success until I realized it was criminally funded." Friedman: "So you claim, yet you spied on her with hidden cameras. That suggests a controlling, paranoid husband, doesn't it?" Carson set his jaw. "I discovered evidence of a serious crime. I used cameras in my own home to protect myself. It wasn't about control, it was about stopping illegal activity." Friedman tried another angle. "Your ex-friend from college stated you once threatened to bankrupt Danielle if she didn't sign a prenuptial. Care to explain?" Carson's brow furrowed. "We had a mutual prenuptial agreement, standard for our finances. I never threatened her. Show me real proof, not hearsay." The defense attorney pressed on a few more lines, but found them quickly dismantled by Carson's unwavering clarity. Eventually, Friedman huffed, "No further questions." Carson stepped down, a slight tremor in his hands. He cast a final glance at Danielle, whose eyes burned with hatred. The truth was out, and the defense's attempts at painting him as controlling felt hollow. Relief mingled with exhaustion as he returned to Miss Kim's side. Toward the trial's final phase, Danielle herself took the stand. Friedman led her in a tearful narrative, describing how she only wanted to protect Carson from Rudy and felt coerced into stashing the drugs. But under cross-examination by Miss Porter, Danielle's story fell apart. Porter confronted her with her own phone calls in which she joked about forging documents, her angry threats to lock Carson up. Danielle squirmed, tears streaming, claiming the recordings were out of context. The prosecutor hammered relentlessly. "Miss Green, do you deny that's your voice instructing your accomplices to expand operations on your husband's property without his knowledge?" Danielle stuttered, glancing wildly at Friedman. I was just repeating Rudy's demands. I didn't," Porter cut in. "You were repeating them or actively facilitating them while threatening your husband's freedom?" Danielle's facade cracked. She tried sobbing, but it came across forced. The jury's faces were grim. In a final blow, Miss Porter replayed a snippet. "I get a cut of all shipments. Carson's too clueless to see it." Danielle's voice was unmistakably triumphant in that clip. Tears pooled, her shoulders slumped. She mumbled about regret, but the damage was done. Friedman attempted a redirect, but her credibility was in shambles. After days of testimony, the closing statements arrived. Miss Porter delivered a succinct condemnation. Danielle orchestrated a drug storehouse, manipulated her husband, and profited. The defense tried once more to claim partial coercion, but it rang hollow against the overwhelming evidence. The jury deliberated for only 5 hours. By late afternoon, everyone reconvened. Tension thick, Danielle stood pale, eyes darting as the jury filed in. The foreman declared, a hush, then a ripple of satisfaction from the prosecution side. Danielle closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. Friedman's shoulders sagged, Friedman murmuring about appealing. The judge thanked the jury, then set a sentencing date for next month. Danielle was led away by deputies, her eyes flicking to Carson one final time, a mixture of fury and despair. He met her gaze calmly, no words left to say. Outside the courthouse, Miss Porter shook Carson's hand. "You were instrumental, Mr. Green. Justice prevailed." He nodded, voice unsteady. "Thank you. I can't believe it's finally over." Miss Kim embraced him briefly, a rare emotional gesture from the usually stoic attorney. "You did great. Next is your divorce hearing, but this was the big battle." He took a shaky breath, eyes stinging with relieved tears. Danielle was found guilty. He was vindicated, recognized as the victim who helped bring her to justice. A swirl of emotion, sadness for what might have been, yet relief that her manipulations ended. Tessa approached, eyes shining with pride. He gave her a soft smile. grateful beyond words. Cameras flashed, reporters swarmed, but Carson felt oddly serene. Let them spin the story how they wished. The truth was hammered home in that verdict. Danielle was guilty. Her attempts to smear him failed. No more illusions. A wave of finality washed over him. Chapter 12. A month after the guilty verdict, Danielle's sentencing day arrived. Carson, though not required, chose to attend, wanting closure. The courthouse was less crowded. He sat quietly behind the prosecution table, Miss Kim by his side. Danielle appeared in a prison jumpsuit again, wrists cuffed. Gone was the fancy suit facade. She looked exhausted, eyes dull. Friedman offered a final plea for leniency, citing her late-stage cooperation, though it wasn't enough for a plea deal. Danielle tearfully apologized to anyone she hurt, never once glancing in Carson's direction. The judge delivered a firm sentence, 15 years in federal prison, with possible supervised release after a minimum of 12. Danielle's face crumpled, tears streaming. Carson felt a pang of pity, but mostly relief that accountability was enforced. As deputies led Danielle away, she gave a fleeting look toward Carson. Something flickered in her eyes, regret, anger, sorrow. He met her gaze with quiet finality. This was the end of their entanglement, at least on the criminal side. She disappeared through the side door, and the chapter truly closed. Days later, Carson stood in a smaller family court courtroom. Danielle obviously wouldn't appear in person, but Friedman represented her. Miss Kim had filed for an uncontested dissolution, given Danielle's felony conviction. Friedman, half defeated, made a half-hearted argument that some marital assets belonged to Danielle. Miss Kim countered that Danielle forfeited her rights through criminal use of funds. Additionally, the prenuptial limited her share if she committed adultery or illegal activity. Friedman sputtered, referencing spousal privilege. The judge cut him short. Given Miss Green's conviction and the clear evidence she violated the terms of the prenuptial, I see no grounds to grant her further claims. This marriage is dissolved effectively. Mr. Green retains the property and associated assets. Miss Green remains liable for restitution if the prosecution pursues it. Gavel rapped. Just like that, the divorce was final. Carson stood in a moment of stunned relief, Miss Kim gripping his arm with a smile. Congratulations, you're free. He closed his eyes, exhaling a massive breath. Thank you, Miss Kim. This day I've wanted it for so long. I appreciate everything. They stepped out into the hallway, Friedman ducking away. The echoing clang of the corridor felt symbolic, as if every chain Danielle cast around him had been undone. Carson whispered to himself, "It's over." The renovation was nearly done. Carson arrived on site, finding the house now sporting a full roof, fresh siding, windows installed. A small deck extended off the living area, granting a sweeping view of the valley. Luis greeted him warmly. "Check it out." Luis led him inside. The interior boasted rustic wood floors, a simple but charming kitchen setup, and a cozy fireplace in the corner of the living room. The basement door was replaced with a normal entrance. The oppressive vibe had vanished. Carson roamed each room, heart brimming with admiration. "It's incredible. You've really transformed it." Luis grinned. "We just have finishing touches left: paint, fixtures, that deck railing. Another week or two it'll be move-in ready, or rent-to ready, whichever you prefer." Carson gazed around, imagining future gatherings, peaceful weekends. The structure once reeked of corruption. Now it radiated potential. "I'm so grateful, Luis. This is beyond what I imagined." The contractor clapped him on the shoulder. "My pleasure, buddy. This was a special project." Carson exhaled, a smile tugging at his lips. The building now mirrored his own journey, once overshadowed by betrayal, now reclaimed with determination. He snapped a few photos to share with Tessa and April, feeling genuinely proud. That afternoon, Carson found a voicemail from Martha Green, Danielle's mother. She sounded emotional, asking if he'd be willing to meet one last time to finalize the return of some personal items. Treading carefully, he agreed to meet at a neutral cafe. She arrived, subdued. She handed him a small box of items, photos from the wedding, a few heirloom pieces Danielle had stored at her mother's house. "I assume you might want them or might not, but I didn't feel right discarding them." Carson thanked her quietly, flipping through a photo of him and Danielle beaming on their wedding day. A bittersweet pang. He set it aside. I appreciate you giving me the choice. I'm probably going to store them away. The memories are complicated. Martha nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. I understand. By the way, I told the FBI everything about that escrow account. They believe I was just an unwitting party. I'm relieved I won't face charges. I only wish Danielle had chosen a different path. He managed a sympathetic look. Me too. But at least it's settled. She's in prison. The damage is done. I hope you can heal. Her lip quivered. I'll try. And you, Carson. I truly wish you find happiness again. You deserve it. He inclined his head, sincerity in his gaze. Thank you, Mrs. Green. That means a lot. They parted amicably, the last thread of Danielle's maternal connection severed. Though still sorrowful, it felt like final closure. He drove home with the box, setting it aside to gather dust or to be revisited on some future day when pain had faded further. Carson invited Tessa to see the nearly finished renovation, wanting her to witness the transformation. She arrived on a sunny morning, stepping out of her car in casual jeans, eyes bright with anticipation. He led her through each room, explaining design choices, exposed beams, a cozy reading nook near the fireplace. Tessa's face lit with genuine delight. This is stunning, Carson. I can't believe it's the same structure that was once used for, well, you know. He smiled, sliding open a window. I know. Feels like a lifetime ago. Now it feels like a place of peace. Thank you for encouraging me. If it weren't for you and others, I might have bulldozed it out of anger. She gently looped her arm through his, a subtle gesture. Sometimes transformation is more powerful than destruction. He exhaled, warmth spreading. You're right. They stepped onto the deck, where the newly installed railing offered a secure vantage over rolling hills. The breeze carried a gentle hush of pines. Tessa leaned against the rail, turning to him with a hint of softness in her gaze. So, now that your divorce is finalized, the trial is over, how do you feel truly? He paused, introspective. Relieved. Free. A little worn out, but ready to move forward without fear or regrets. I can finally see a future that's mine to shape. She smiled, resting a hand lightly on his chest. I'm glad. You deserve every bit of that hope. A quiet moment passed, the sun warming them. Then, with a tentative step, Carson leaned closer. Their lips met softly, a gentle, lingering kiss in the hush of the morning. His heart fluttered, relief and longing melding. She responded, a subtle sigh escaping. That fleeting moment carried a sweet promise of new beginnings, untainted by deception. They drew apart, smiling shyly. No grand speeches were needed. The deck, the fresh air, and the redeemed house around them symbolized a second chance for them both. 2 weeks later, Luis declared the project finished. Carson, full of gratitude, decided to host a small, housewarming gathering for the people who supported him. He invited April, Tessa, Miss Kim, even Agent Hawks, a modest group but symbolic. A mild Saturday afternoon saw them gathering on the newly built deck. Carson grilled some burgers and chicken on a portable grill, while inside the living area was decked with simple furniture. The atmosphere was relaxed and warm. Miss Kim raised a plastic cup of lemonade. To Carson, who proved that with courage and the right help, one can overcome betrayal and find something even better. They clinked cups, murmurs of agreement. April teased, all that remains is we see if Tessa can outshoot him at backyard archery or something. Everyone laughed. Tessa shook her head in mock annoyance. I have better aim than that, she joked. Carson glanced around, heart full. He realized how each of them, April, Tessa, Miss Kim, Hawks, had played a vital role in salvaging his life from Danielle's wreckage. He quietly thanked them all. I truly couldn't have done it alone. Hawks gave a polite nod. We just pointed the law in the right direction. You had the courage to come forward and testify, even under threats. This place stands as proof of your determination. Carson's gaze drifted across the living room, seeing no trace of the old, menacing vibe. Instead, it felt like a safe haven. Tessa slipped an arm around his waist gently, exchanging a private, supportive look. He allowed himself to relish that closeness. After the guests parted, Agent Hawks lingered briefly on the porch, wearing a faint smile. "Carson, the Bureau thanks you again. With Danielle's conviction, plus leads from the other arrests, we dismantled a decent chunk of the ring. Rudy got his sentence, 220 years, so the threat level to you should drop significantly now." He felt a surge of relief. "That's excellent. I was worried about lingering associates, but if the ring's major players are locked up, hopefully no more tire slashing or prowlers." Hawks nodded. "We'll keep your file flagged if anything emerges, but truly, we believe you can move on safely." She extended her hand. "Congratulations on everything. If you ever need the FBI, you know where to find us." He shook her hand, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, Agent Hawks, for always keeping me in the loop. Take care." With that, she departed, leaving Carson with the contentment that at last the criminal saga was behind him. Over the following weeks, Tessa and Carson naturally grew closer. She spent off-duty hours at his renovated cabin, reading together by the fireplace or strolling the property's wooded trails. Their bond deepened gently, unhurried but genuine. Carson found solace in her presence, trusting her in ways he never thought possible after Danielle's betrayal. He confided in her about nightmares that still flared occasionally, flashbacks to the basement threat. Tessa offered a listening ear, sometimes just hugging him until the tension receded. She had her own share of job stress, which he reciprocated with empathy. In that mutual support, a stable foundation formed. One evening, they sipped wine on the deck under a canopy of stars. Tessa leaned her head on his shoulder. "Feels surreal. How far you've come in just half a year, from despair to this calm." Carson inhaled the crisp night air, content. "I owe it partly to you, and to my friends, and maybe to my own stubborn refusal to let Danielle's darkness define me." She brushed a gentle kiss on his cheek. "You define yourself now, free of her shadow." He smiled into the starry sky. "Yes, free. I never imagined I'd say that so soon." As the renovation was fully complete and the final bills settled, Carson mulled what to do with the new place. Initially, he planned to keep it as a weekend retreat or potential rental, but Miss Kim mentioned property taxes and costs. Meanwhile, Tessa teased him. "You going to move in permanently?" He walked the freshly stained floors, imagining living here full-time, but he also had his main house in town, closer to his cybersecurity clients, Tessa's station, and everyday amenities. Maybe the cabin was best as a vacation spot or an Airbnb for extra income. He wrestled with the choice. One sunny afternoon, April visited, admiring the final touches. "If I were you," she said, "I'd keep it personal. It's like a sanctuary. Sure, rent it occasionally, but keep it for your own escapes." Carson nodded, resonating with the idea. The place held symbolic weight. Perhaps letting strangers rent it constantly might tarnish the sense of refuge. He concluded that for now, he'd keep it as a personal getaway, maybe occasionally renting short-term to friends of friends. Tessa agreed. "We can come out here for quiet weekends, away from the city." Yes, that sounded perfect. Let it remain a private haven, a testament to transformation. Months passed, the seasons shifting. Danielle was well into her prison sentence. No further appeals gained traction. Carson's divorce was fully recognized by the state. The local news moved on to other stories. The threats from Rudy's associates seemed to vanish in the wake of the ring's collapse. Agent Hawks occasionally updated him that all was quiet. Carson thrived in his cybersecurity career, picking up new clients and enjoying the freedom to telecommute from either his suburban house or the cabin. His personal life blossomed with Tessa, though they took it slowly, respecting each other's boundaries. Friends like April cheered them on. Even Miss Kim occasionally teased him about inviting her to the eventual wedding, making Carson blush and laugh. One crisp morning at the cabin, Carson sipped coffee on the deck, arm around Tessa as the sun rose over the distant pines. The light spilled golden across the newly sanded deck boards, illuminating the small wooded valley. He reflected on his journey, heartbreak, betrayal, danger, and the unwavering resolve that led him here, standing tall. Danielle's specter no longer haunted him. The place that once symbolized her crimes now stood reborn, just as he had been. Tessa leaned her head on his shoulder. "This is gorgeous. I can't imagine a better start to a day." He smiled softly, planting a gentle kiss on her hair. Thank you for being here. In every sense. I feel alive again. She squeezed his hand. You are alive, Carson, and free to shape the future you want. He took a long breath, letting the crisp air fill his lungs. Indeed, life lay open before him, no longer weighed by old fears, surrounded by supportive friends, anchored in an honest relationship, proud of the new cabin that replaced the old sorrow. A warm glow of hope filled him. As the sun inched above the horizon, gilding the treetops, Carson Green stepped forward into that bright dawn, a dawn untainted by deception or regret, filled instead with genuine love and the promise of renewal.